All right, welcome back to RPG Limit Break 2018. I will be handing it off to the next host right now, but first, we have Clear Tonic here to interview our Dragon Quest III runners. So let us go ahead over to that. Tonic, take it away.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We're here at RPG Limit Break, and we have a Dragon Quest III race coming up next. And we're here joined by SUMDeaner.
Hello.
Pop Song.
Hello.
And so these guys will be doing the race, and Keishura here is going to help us talk with Pop, because Pop is from Japan.
Hello.
So yeah, we're super excited for this race. So yeah, I'll ask a few questions to SUMD first. So yeah, I think, Dragon Quest III is this, I'm super excited for this race coming up, and I think it's like a really great, cool run, but obviously it comes with some difficulties learning it because it's a Japanese game and a huge Japanese community. If you could talk a little bit about what it was to kind of get your teeth into the game for the first time when you started learning and what you've kind of learned over the years.
Sure. So my introduction to Dragon Quest III and Dragon Quest speedrunning in general was actually 2 years ago at RPG Limit Break 2016 when you're right here, Clear Sonic, played Dragon Quest III. And I really was captivated by the run when I watched it, and I wanted to play it. So Tonic, you put in a lot of work, and I learned a lot from that, as well as some other players who had also played. After I learned the run and got started playing it just a little bit with not very good times, I got in touch with the rest of the Western Dragon Quest community, and they showed me a lot of really great resources to help me learn and really motivated me to keep playing and keep improving my times more and more.
Yeah, that's great. So can you talk to me a little bit about getting ready for this race? So you're squaring up against Pop, who's, we'll talk in a second, is a very, very good player. And yeah.
Well, so I've been playing the game for about 2 years now, since it was announced that we were going to be playing here. Pop and I started practicing immediately. And if you check on Speedruns Live, there's like over 25 races between that Pop and I both participated in. So a lot of practice went in, and counting between those races and no reset runs that we played on our own, there's probably more than 70 complete playthroughs between the two of us. So for the last 2 months, we've been hard at work grinding, trying to improve our skills and get ready for this event.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a little bit of kind of safety strats or some deviations you'll do compared to a regular run, right? So you're getting ready for a race, and you're just kind of like doing your best to mitigate all the situations. So you guys have to react to things on the fly. If you could talk a little bit about kind of the things that people should watch out for.
Oh, sure. So the game Dragon Quest III does have a lot of random elements to it. There are going to be random encounters that are going to be different every time we play. There are going to be random stat gains that are going to be different every time we play. And even the spells, when we learn certain spells, can affect our strategies. So no two runs of the game are ever the same, and you really need to be prepared. A few spots to look out for in particular, where there may be a lot of potential for lead changes very early on in the game, as well as in the middle of the game for the Metal Slime grind. And then again, at the very end of the game, the final boss rush is very tense and very dangerous section. So we've put in a lot of practice to give it our best bet to get through in one piece.
Yeah, it's great. We'll see. It's all over the place, but it's awesome to see talented players be able to kind of take situations and deal with them. So Pop Song first. Are you excited to be in America to play Dragon Quest III with us?
とても楽しみにしてます。
He says he's really looking forward to it.
Great. So could you talk a little bit if he's kind of nervous or feeling ready and kind of inspired to play?
全然緊張しなくて。緊張はしてないです。もうすごく楽しみです。
It seems that he's not nervous, but he's really, really excited to be here.
That's great. Yeah. So Pop is a very talented player who came over from Japan to play with us today. And yeah, so I think with that, we're going to get started and get into it. So good luck, guys. Very excited.
Thank you.
And yeah, kick back.
Hello, hello, everybody. I am Ghost King, and I'm going to be hosting the next 2 runs, actually. We got a great race of Dragon Quest III by SUMDeaner and twitchpop coming up. We also have a run after that of Final Fantasy Legend, aka Saga 1, by Big Fong Balls, and then another Dragon Quest race, this time of Dragon Quest 1 for the Super Famicom. So real quick, I wanted to wrap up just a couple of donations left from the Final Fantasy VI run. We got $10 from Trenton GL saying, "Thanks to everyone for this event. Puexel's Choice for the donation." Another $5 from DN Anime that says, "Puexel, hello," and has a waving emoji. Donation to Puexel's Choice. And then you have another donation. Anonymous donated $50 saying, "This donation is in honor of the Burke Mental Health Emergency Clinic in Lufkin, Texas. The professionals there helped me through a depressive episode, and now I'm working as a chemical dependency counselor helping others. Put this 50 to Puexel's Choice." Have $6 from Lack Attack 24 that says, "Thank you guys who taught me everything about this amazing game, Final Fantasy VI. Name something Shikuku for me. Thanks." Got another $75 from Swerdna that says, "The memories being destroyed must contribute. Nadia needs a hug."
talking. Can you hear me? I'm talking. I'm totally talking to you. Hi, Sid. How are you doing? Lower? Alright. It's pointed at my mouth. Religion's giving me good tips. He's nodding his head. Yeah, and he's looking at me like, okay, sometimes you annoy the crap out of me. Yeah. He's doing that smile he does. He's like, yeah. I'm talking in Sid's ears, and hopefully he's... Religion. If it's too much work, it's okay.
Alrighty, so it sounds like we are about ready to throw it over to the Dragon Quest III community with the race between SUMDeaner and twitchpop. So go ahead and take it away.
Alright, Dragon Quest 3 any percent race. We got SUMD and Pop Song ready to throw down. Yeah, so I think what's up? Good? Alright, great. So why don't we jump into it? We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game, but these guys are ready to go. Excited. I'm excited. Excited?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna give a countdown and we'll get started. Good? All right, let's do it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. All right. All right, so yeah, let's get into it. So there's a pop song naming his character Yakuza. So yes, there's a lot to cover for this game, and there's a lot of different moving elements, so we'll try to cover these early parts quickly. So there's a lot of stuff that happens early on in the game that kind of sets your party up for future success. So what we're doing here is called the personality test, and basically the players are going to be answering a series of questions that allow them to dictate what personality their hero ends up with. And personality is an incredibly important thing throughout this game. You'll be picking different characters and making sure that they have the right personalities. And what personality means is that every time you level up based on different personality that you have, you'll get different types of growth. So we're going to be going with the lazy hero, which sounds awful, but it's actually a good personality because it'll allow for boosted vitality growth. And as we'll see, having a tankier characters or set of characters will be very valuable. So we're going to have a lazy hero, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of either Iron Men or tough guys for the rest of our characters. So yeah. So after we're done with this, we're going to be going to talk to the king in Olihan, and then we're going to go to Ruida's Tavern, and we're going to get some characters. So if you're familiar with this game, you kind of create characters and they join your party. So we're going to be creating 3 characters, and their classes are going to be the Mage, the Warrior, and the Thief. And we'll talk about the class changes later on in the game, but early on what you need to know is that all 3 of those character classes are going to be primarily similar to Lazy, where it's vitality boosted. Their personalities are going to be primarily either Iron Man or Tough Guy for the sake of getting higher vitality. So I'm talking about this. It's just like an incredibly important thing to set up your characters correctly. So what they're going to do is going to talk to the king. They're going to get a whole bunch of some items, a little bit of gold, but this is a story part. And then they're going to go create their characters, and they just have to create the characters and roll seeds. You want to talk about seeds for a second?
Yeah, sure. So when you go to create a character, they give you 5 or very rarely 6 stat seeds that you can sort of allocate between your different stats how you want. And so these guys are going to be putting all of their seeds into stamina, and there's certain thresholds that they want to meet. So you start off with sort of a range of possible stamina values, and then the seeds can roll between 1 and 3 for each seed. And they want to specifically be hitting at least 15 for the mage, at least 16 for the thief, and at least 19 for the warrior to influence their personality, like Tonic was saying.
How common is the personality trait we're looking for? Like, do they have to re-roll a lot?
So they're going to try to get the stat ranges that Hexacle was just talking about, and it's either 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 chance based on that, and they have to look at the text to see whether or not when they create the character, whether or not they have that personality.
Oh, okay. So the personality is based off the stat.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's off of the stat and some ranges, so it's a little bit complicated, but these guys are actively flagging as they create these characters. So if you're wondering, this game was only released in Japan for this version. So Super Famicom Remake, was Japan only. So, I think, actually, we'll talk about that in a second. So while we're here, we're just going to be primarily putting into stamina seeds. I'm not sure if you said that, because we're just talking about rolling seeds. But we're boosting stamina. So what's going to happen is that they're boosting stamina to both influence their personality, but also stamina is what influences your HP growth every time that you level up. All you really need to know early on is that when they get to level 2, you're going to see some gigantic HP boosts because the game is kind of catching up because they influence their stamina stats so much for these 3 characters that they created. So just watch out when they level up, and we'll point it out. You'll just see a massive HP boost. So they've got a few some items that they got from the king. So they've got some armor, some basic weaponry, and we're off. We've got a lot to do in the DQ3 world. We're going to be primarily following kind of like a linear route for a little bit, which is just what the game expects you to do. You're supposed to get the Thief Ski, then you go to the Magic Ball Cave, and then you kind of progress all the way through Romley. So once we get to Romley, we'll kind of take a pause and talk about what's the outside of the strategy that's happening. So I think during this time, it's probably a good time to talk about the history of this game very briefly. So this is a wildly popular game in Japan. As of this morning, there are 226 entries on the Nico Nico leaderboards, and probably about, I would say, around like 10 or so of us in the West who've played this game as well. So there's a lot of people who have played this game. There's a lot of people who have committed to just like helping out develop the route, and as we'll see, this is like a gigantic game of a lot of randomness, a lot of things happening. So it's very much like a risk and reward scenario that we'll be seeing, or many risk and reward scenarios that we're going to be seeing throughout the run. And I mean, like just trying to survive throughout a race and beat your opponent is also, you got to act on the fly, and these guys are going to be watching each other and seeing how they play and they're reacting to stuff. So
Tonic, can you give us a little bit of information for the people viewing as to why the joke about the Yakuza is here?
Well, I'm actually not super familiar,
Okay.
but feel free.
So, as Tanek said, that the game is super popular in Japan, and it's run by so many people that there's a running joke that if you want to go to Japan, that you need to get sub 3 in Dragon Quest 3, and then you can join the Yakuza. In honor of that, Pop-san has named his character Yakuza, and we're both looking like very,
Yes,
very sophisticated Yakuza.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we stopped in town. We bought a whole bunch of herbs. We're not going to really have many healing opportunities outside of herbs. Really, our hero is going to have a heal spell, but for quite a while, hero is the only one that's going to be able to heal. So we need to stock up on herbs. We need to get Chimera Wings, which will allow us to warp around. And yeah, we're going through Najimi Tower now to climb to the top and to get the Thief's Key. So yeah, let's talk about battles quickly. You want to talk about run rates and battles?
Sure. So, obviously, random encounters are a huge part of this game and a huge part of the speedrun. So, there are various points in the run where the runners will be fighting the battles for experience versus trying to just run away to get to the next area as quickly as possible, because some enemies at certain points in the games, which we'll see later, are just more efficient for XP gain. So if they don't want to fight something because it's too dangerous or too slow, they'll try to run away. And the way running away works is that the first time you try to run, you have a 25% chance of running away. The second try, you have a 50%, then 75, then 100. And when you fail to run away, not every enemy is also guaranteed to take an action. But they can all take action. So that's something that's a little bit different between different Dragon Quest games, but it's worth keeping in mind that when they try to run, that not every enemy may retaliate in that opening. So there'll be a little bit of variance in how they handle things based on that too.
Yeah. So we're going through Najimi Tower. You'll see that earlier on, Popson went to the inn to restore his HP and MP. SUMDeaner just did it at the base of the tower. It's kind of cool that there are options early on, but basically they just want to keep their HP and their MP levels high. Specifically the MP levels on the mage, as she's cast in Mera or Blaze, helps speed up some of these earlier battles. So these guys are going to be trying to get their levels to at least 2 for sure, but 3 is kind of a good race strategy. So these battles here are very much like easy to get the experience to get to level 2 and level 3, and then they're pretty much going to stay with that for the next like 20 minutes or so, and they're just going to run from the rest of the battles. But getting the marginal difference of another level just like is a little bit more HP and a little bit more defense. And we'll be seeing pretty soon that these guys are going to start running from battles to kind of get to an early access point to a lot of cash. So yeah, whatever they can do early on to bolster their chances for the long run is definitely smart. So Pop is going back to town. He's going to be picking up Magic Ball. SUMDeaner's not far behind. Yeah, maybe we should take a pause here and talk about what seeds do and how important they are for the run. Yeah, I'll kind of defer to you. So if we could talk a little bit about, seeds that they're going to be picking up and which ones are the most important ones.
Sure. So similar to the seeds that we were talking about when we were creating our characters, the runners will be getting seeds as certain items throughout the run that they'll be using to increase their stats. And there's a few types of seeds in particular they're looking for. Strength seeds are by far the most common. They'll pretty much all go to your hero to make him as strong as possible. They will be getting a couple of stamina seeds, quite a few agility seeds, and then also life force nuts. The life force nuts they pick up is kind of an area where there's sort of the risk-reward factor where, it takes a little bit of time to go out of the way to get them, but they will make, in particular, the end game a little bit more reliable. The fastest runs will cut out many of those life seeds, but expect the racers to pick up probably about 8 of them. again, just like the character creations, the stat seeds can roll between a 1 and 3 on the increase. We don't really save scum them or anything like that. We just hope for high rolls. And I think that's pretty much the idea behind the seeds. We'll get a couple others like wisdom seeds, which may go to certain characters, or there was one in the house where they got the magic ball, which usually is saved as a sort of a safety item for selling for some extra cash.
Yeah. So with the seeds and their distribution of like 1 to 3 on each roll, so as you play this game, all the level ups that happen on each one of your characters is not set at all, and it's based on the frame whenever you level up. So basically these seeds are sort of your backup to be able to adjust what happens to the level ups that happen throughout the game. And effectively we save them for at the end of the run, so that all of the course correcting that happens every time you level up is kind of set. So right before you enter zone, it's typical that we'll use a whole bunch of the HP seeds or life force nuts, but we're going to be primarily just stashing them for now. So yeah, I think we should talk about kind of like what Dragon Quest is about in terms of the battle system. And I think the main point to take away is that deaths are incredibly costly. There is not much remedy throughout this entire game and route, especially the route to revive dead characters. So especially early on, we're primarily going to be just kind of like blitzkrieging from area to area, and we just have to survive with somebody. So we kind of hope that the whole party doesn't wipe. But if a few characters die in here and there, it's fine. We expect, in the dungeon that these guys are in and coming up soon, that characters are going to start dying. But it's all about making it all the way to the end. So we're going to see some pretty cool, clever stuff that they'll be doing, like shifting around their inventories to try to boost their defenses as best as possible. So
there's also a money factor involved with dying too. So when you die, they're not going to have access to any revival items or abilities for almost the entire run. So they're going to have to revive in town at a priest. And in the early game, it'll be relatively inexpensive, usually 10 gold per character. But as they get later in the run, if they take many deaths, it may affect some of their item purchases, or they may need to sell a few extra items for cash because it costs money to revive your characters. It'll be a few hundred in the second half of the run per character. So if they wipe to one of the later bosses, then that's a little bit of a factor that they'll have to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is the cost of the revival calculated?
So it's up to level 5, it'll only cost you 10 gold, but then from there it scales based on your level. So as you get later in the run, it'll just cost more and more. Luckily, as these guys are going to be going through this next section, for the next probably 10 or 15 minutes, they'll still be under level 5, so it'll be cheap, but it's still time costly for sure. And the other thing about Dragon Quest I want to bring up was that this is completely random, right? So there's a lot of Super Famicom games or Super Nintendo games that have some like RPGs that have manipulation elements, and really none of that exists for this series overall. There's certainly some exceptions, absolutely, but especially for Dragon Quest 3, the most popular category by far is just any %, and it's kind of inherent any % glitchless. So these guys are seeing completely different scenarios. You'll see completely different formations, and there's a lot of scary scenarios. Speaking of which, we're up against one right now. So maybe we should take a pause and talk about the Pyramid Walk. So what's happening is that we made it to Romilly, and we want money as soon as possible. We want a lot of it. So what we're going to do is primarily just kind of go straight to the pyramid to get the magic key, and that'll allow us to open up some chests in the Castletown Isis. So yeah, that's what Popson's up to now, and SUMDeaner's in Romilly just kind of setting up. If you watch SUMD for a second, basically he's just doing some inventory rearranging and going to the shop and buying some armor to help bolster his chances. And then if you see on Popson, what's happening is that he made it to Ashalam, and it's kind of a checkpoint before getting to the Castletown, or rather the pyramid, and then eventually the Castletown Isis. And he had 2 characters wiped to the 3 gorillas, and this is definitely where it gets into some very sketchy territory. You want to talk about like what we're going to see as we get to the pyramid?
Sure. So as the runners move towards the pyramid, they'll continue to encounter more more and more dangerous enemies. And there's a good variety of enemies that come up. You've got the monkeys, you've got the catflies, and they all have sort of, different abilities, but the general theme is that they're all very dangerous. So there's no real option for fighting them at this point in the run. The runners are way too underleveled, so they'll just be really attempting to flee. And the walk to the pyramid is very dangerous through the desert. When they get into the pyramid, there'll be a couple floors with a relatively low encounter rate.
Nice.
These gorillas can critical, so that just happened to SUMDeaner. And the hope is to get to the pyramid with as few encounters as possible. One thing that you'll see SUMDeaner doing right now is that as a character dies, he bought some safety gear in Romilly, and he'll be redistributing that to other characters who are still alive to increase his chances of surviving through this dangerous area.
Yeah, this is looking kind of rough. Let's see what happens. Oh no. All right. So somebody's going to take a wipe. And this is very much like expected. It's not expected to just get through the pyramid first try, especially on a no reset and a race. Like, things are going to happen. So effectively what he's going to do is heal up his characters, warp back, and reset the inventory that he shuffled around, and then head on back onto the trail. So yeah, you can see Papa's making it a little bit further into the desert, but still kind of in a rough spot. He's got 2 characters down already, and
he might stop by Isis to revive his characters before tackling the pyramid.
yeah,
It's a pretty good idea if you have 2 characters dead.
he's just going for
He's
it.
just going.
So yeah. Okay. So here we go. So he actually went there, and this is actually a great segue. We could talk about how encounters work in terms of walking on either the overworld or the dungeons. Unfortunately, let's just see how this ends up, Mummy Man. Not looking great. Okay, great. So we're kind of on equal footing here. So with encounters, what happens is that either when you leave a battle, it's technically when you enter a battle, but when you leave a battle or when you go in and out of a screen transition or stairs or enter an area, a value is set, and then as you walk around, that value decreases and goes towards 0. And when it hits 0, you get into a battle. And what is important about that is that there are techniques that the players can do to reset that value back to some random number. And you'll see that. And what that kind of translates in layman's terms is that they'll do various things to either reset the encounter rate or to dodge an encounter altogether just by adjusting their strategy. So there's not too much they can do early on, but especially as we get later into the run, there's a fair amount of techniques they can do to just reduce encounters.
Yeah, so SUMDeaner just took a safety save. He didn't even make it to Asalam, so he has to come back to Romilly and do this first part of the walk again also. The safety save is because, again, as I mentioned, it costs money to revive characters. He's got some limited quantities of items like herbs and chimera wings, so if there's another death, then it's better to reset and have your resources back than to have to try to come up with a way to continue on.
I see that somebody is taking an encounter here. Why
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good point. So before he gets into the dangerous area, he's forcing an encounter in a less dangerous area so that he has the highest chance of walking towards the town and having fewer encounters. We'll see that now and then, but especially here, because once you get over that tile that he was grinding that fight out on, that's where you start to see these enemies, which are slightly more dangerous. Actually, a lot more dangerous. So luckily, this is a good encounter that somebody's dealing with. Yeah, and I'll just say that this is like very kind of typical for races, is that everybody kind of struggles. Not all the time. Sometimes you just kind of walk into the pyramid, it's no problem. But usually you have a struggle getting to the pyramid and kind of clearing out the area. But it's just kind of like what you have to do. You get so much reward for doing this setup of just going to the pyramid that it absolutely pays off. So yeah, I think we should talk about kind of what the benefits are of the pyramid, just to give some pretext as to what happens, because things kind of move quickly afterwards. So again, the whole reason that we're doing this, blitzkrieging the pyramid, is so that we can get the magic key. And the magic key is going to, well, 1, we have to get it, but 2, it allows us to access the Isis Vault, which has effectively around 13,000 gold, of which you can sell the items that you get in there, and then that'll allow you to stock up your party with very good equipment for which, you know, a level 3 party should not have, or the game doesn't expect you to have. And then you go and start clearing out some of the required areas and then start progressing the story. So.
I think we saw in Dragon Quest VIII as well that there was the magic key and then there's the 2 others, right?
That's right. So they actually have the Thief's Key already. They'll be getting the magic key, and then about halfway through the game, they'll get the ultimate key, which will just allow them to open any door. Yeah, so the magic key doesn't do too much, but it is required because you need to get to Castle Town Portoga in order to get the ship with it. And, of course, it also gives us all this money. So, yeah, this is kind of like standard area for getting through the pyramid. It's a struggle for everybody. But, yeah. So, I think that's a good cue. We can take some donations for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Certainly. So we got $5 from Phonim that says, "Thank you very much for organizing this event, and thanks to all the runners and staff and donors. I am living with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I can get through the day knowing that there are people out there willing to help. Shoutouts to the researchers, psychiatrists, mental health workers, and NAMI for working hard to prevent, treat, and manage psychiatric disorders. Find the cure's hype." Got $5 from Lavkian, who says, "Who's ready for Swords of Kings cut in a marathon? I sure as heck am. Ganbate, Diener and Popson. Donation goes to Yakuza's Choice." We got $10 from Deln that says, "Hello, it is me again. I wish I had the time to be at RPG Limit Break, but alas, it wasn't the year. Good luck to both SUMDeaner and Popson on the race, and may the luck of Gomechan be with you."
All right, great. So Pop is entering the dreaded pyramid. So the encounter rate is fairly low in this area. So there's 3 floors, but the encounters that happen in this dungeon are a nightmare. So basically, you really have to hope to run early on. He's got 4 characters live. Somebody's entering. He's got 2 characters live. And yeah, so the way this floor works that Pop is on is that you need to press 4 buttons in order to access the vault where the magic key is. So you have to do them in this order that he's going through. And yeah, it's actually looking pretty good for his first encounter. He should be getting one right about now. And then, wow, that's really far. That's really far. So yeah, that's pretty fortunate. And yeah, so there's not much strategy besides run from these battles and hope for the best. And yeah, there's something else I want to point out too, is that when you're in a battle and one of your character dies, enemies that are still attacking on that turn still have the chance of targeting that same dead ally of yours. So it could be that they get targeted too, and they waste an action. So unfortunately for somebody, he's gonna go back and yeah, and it looks like that Popson was able to make it through. He got the magic key. He's not done yet. He still has to make it to Isis. But yeah, definitely somebody's having some rough luck here, and hopefully he can make it through. But yeah, this is kind of the way the pyramid goes. It's not kind.
I've noticed that sometimes the runners are like walking into a wall, but then like get pushed around it. Is there any reason for that?
Not really. It's just sort of like the auto correction of not allowing the player just kind of bump into the wall. It's kind of like a nice to have, but there's no like speed benefit to it.
But the one thing that you can use it for is just to ensure that you're taking kind of the minimum number of steps possible, especially on that floor of the pyramid. The encounters are so deadly that you really want to be cutting every corner as close as possible just to reduce your chance of getting an encounter, because the counter does count down every partial step. So you know, there's no definite benefit, but it's sort of a nice visual cue for your movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, as somebody who runs a couple of grid-blocked RPGs myself, I personally find a lot of the skill that people maybe don't exactly notice as much, but just really helps out in runs, is just being able to optimize your movement and your turns so that you take as few steps as possible. Because not only does that save time on movement, but it lowers the chance of encounters. So as easy as simple as that sounds, it is actually quite the skill to be able to just optimize steps throughout a run, even in games that don't have necessarily like this step counters the way many do.
Okay, so I want to point out, so Pop, after he went to the pyramid and made it to Castletown Isis, he needed to force it to be nighttime. So we haven't talked about the day-night cycle, but basically there is a day-night system. And certain areas will open up at nighttime, and some formations of enemies in areas will be different based on day or night. Effectively, Pop is raiding the vault. He got a whole bunch of items, and we'll cover those in a second as he sells them. And then he's coming to the top area here, and he's going to pick up a prayer ring, which are incredibly valuable. Right here. And so he's off to the town. He's going to be doing a whole bunch of selling and basically getting some very good equipment for his characters early on. Meanwhile, SUMDeaner is certainly having some issues getting through, but it's just a matter of time.
And the one thing that we really can't stress enough is that because of some of the random elements of this game and certain things that can happen is that while SUMDeaner is losing a little bit of time now, and that is time lost, this run is not over until it is over. There are a few really critical points in this run where anything can happen. So just because SUMDeaner is falling a little bit behind on this pyramid, nothing is a foregone conclusion with this game, ever.
Yeah, we've seen it all. We've seen runs come back from dead in terms of races and people catching up in small ways that you wouldn't expect. So Pop just sold off a whole bunch of things. Sold off I don't think he sold the ruby ring yet, but he sold off golden crown, a few other things that he picked up, and was able to buy for his hero and his warrior some iron equipment. So he's got some iron armor, some shields, I think a steel broadsword. If not yet, it'll be in the next town that he buys that. And so he'll be saving one piece of or one item, which is the ruby ring that sells for over 7,000. He doesn't want to sell that yet because he doesn't want to have cash on hand in case he wipes, which is something that could happen. He might actually. It's on the walk to Portogo when we get there coming up. There's a decent chance that you could wipe. So you never want to have excess gold on hand because you lose half your gold whenever you take a party wipe. So so. Looks like SUMD is trying to make it through. He's got 2 characters. Good. Very good. Very good. Okay, so once he hits all 4 buttons, he won't actually have to go and hit those buttons again in the event that he were to wipe. So it's at least progress there, but hopefully he can get this magic key and move on. Meanwhile, Pop's on. That's great. That's great. Here we go. So Pop went to the underbelly. I don't know what I'm saying. So underneath Ice's castle to be able to get the meteorite armband or the starry ring. Effectively, this is a equipment that doubles your character's agility. Whoever equips it, it's incredibly valuable, and we're going to be using that a lot on certain key characters as we go through the grind segments, and then especially on bosses. So, you want to talk about what's happening in the vault here?
So Pop is just finishing collecting up some items that he's able to get with this magic key. This is the vault in Eliahan that he's in right now. He's getting some money. He's getting the rune staff, which is a good weapon for the mage, and it will also be sold for some really good cash later. And he's getting the hero bracer or armband, which has sort of an interesting effect. So it gives you a little bit of extra strength, and it's really good for characters that are doing physical attacks. But there are certain accessories in this game that when you equip them also change your personality when that item is equipped, and the hero ring is also one of those items. So it will affect certain level up stats while it's equipped, but the main goal is just that it's going to make your physical attackers much stronger, especially for some of the early bosses.
Yep. Yeah, plus 15. So what's cool about that, so we're just talking about these 2 accessories, the starry ring or the meteorite armband and the hero's armband. So it's either double agility or plus 15 strength, and these players are going to be swapping them through their characters, mostly between the hero and the thief early on, to be able to swap their damage ranges. And so it's a really cool thing that you'll see when we go into bosses. We're going to make sure that the thief has the starry ring or the meteor armband in order to guarantee going first to heal characters. But then when you're fighting battles on the world map or in a dungeon trying to get some levels, we're going to give the thief the hero's armband so that she can do damage ranges to try to clear enemies as quickly as possible. So there's like swapping of the accessories. Let's see what happens. Pops on. All right, so he didn't see the lump, but this is still dangerous. So this is what we were talking about before. He hopes to not have a lot of money on hand and just tries to make it through so he can get here. Unfortunately, the ravens on the left do have 2 actions per turn, and the animal zombies do a fair amount of damage. He should be able to get through this without wiping, but hopefully he can make it through. All right, so this is what Hactical was saying before, but basically if you try to run 3 times and fail, you're guaranteed to run the 4th. So hopefully you can make it without the ridiculous. Okay, there's a chance you can get into a fight with 2 tiles, but it's like infinitesimal, so it didn't happen, which is good. So yeah, and it looks like somebody is kind of just going along the way, following Pop, not too far behind, and yeah. So he's doing the same thing. You can see it here that he's kind of selling a bunch of inventory, and so the players will be selling the prayer ring, and the prayer ring it's a wizard ring. It allows you to recover MP. It's a 1 in 16 chance of breaking every time you use it. They're incredibly valuable, and we're going to be using them a lot later in the run, but early on, the 1875 gold that you sell it for is just too good to pass up on.
So one thing that you may have noticed when Pop was doing this walk to Portoga is he actually equipped the Starry Ring while he was in combat. So there's a few different actions that you can do in combat. Obviously, attacking or defending takes your character's turn, or using an item. But you can also swap out your equipment mid-combat, so there's a couple times where that's pretty useful. We'll see it a little bit more potentially around the Kandar 2 fight, but the general idea is that sometimes equipping items in combat can be faster than doing it through the menu. And when you're going to use an item in combat, keep in mind, if you've never played a Dragon Quest game before, that you can only use items that are in that character's inventory. So you sort of have this bag that you can stash extra items in, but you can't pull from that bag while you're in combat. So you need to set up your character's inventory with whatever items you think you're going to need, such as medical herbs or whatever else. And your characters have limited space in their inventory. So there's sort of a lot that goes on with that in battle menus and outside of menus for setting up for battles. So the runners will be managing that kind of constantly throughout the run, what is on each character, and knowing what's on each character is a very important part of getting a good time in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Inventory management is huge, and I'll just kind of elucidate on that. So every character has 12 slots in their personal inventory, but the bag has an infinite amount of space. So there's a lot of rearranging that'll happen throughout the run. And yeah, just as Hactival was saying, it's very much, keeping on top of your inventory and just making sure that you're fully aware of what's happening in each character's inventory, and that you have 6 herbs on your thief, or you have 2 herbs on your thief. It's a big deal, and you really have to pay attention. It's very easy when you start playing this game for the first time, if you're trying to speedrun it, to not think about the details like that. But when you get into boss battles or certain encounters and you're like, oh, I don't have what I need, it really, really hurts. So you need to always be paying attention. So yeah, let's talk about generally what we're doing now. So we picked up a lot of money. We stocked up our characters. So for Pop, he went to Portoga, and he talked to the king, which kind of sets for the set of events that we'll need to eventually do to get the ship. And yeah, now that we got a lot of money and we stocked up our characters with some decent equipment, we bought 2 steel whips, which are incredibly good. So they allow the player to tackle groups a lot better. So both the thief and the hero have steel whips, and we also have a broadsword on the warrior. So yeah, we've got offensive capabilities, we've got defensive capabilities, and basically now that we're all set up, we're going to go take out both Kandar 1 and Kandar 2. If you're familiar with the NES version of this game, you don't have to fight Kandar 1 and Kandar 2, but you do for Super Famicom, so that's required. So we're going to go to Champagne Tower and take down Kandar 1. So along the way, the players are going to be leveling up, right? So from here on out, now that your character is a little bit stockier, you need to be able to both beat Kandar 1 and Kandar 2. And you may be stockier on your defensive capabilities. And, you know, you're doing decent damage with the offensive output, but you absolutely need levels in order to clear both of them. So, yeah. You want to talk about the mage's spells?
Yeah, so spells in Dragon Quest III work in sort of a different way to some other RPGs. Certain spells have guaranteed levels where at this level you will always learn this spell, but many of the spells, especially for the mage, are more of a coin flip. So when the mage hits level 4, she has a chance of learning the upper spell, and when she hits level 5, she has a chance of learning the Ice Bolt spell. Looks like SUMDeaner just got the
Cross your
dreaded
fingers.
4-lump encounter.
Very nice, very nice.
Awesome. So every time the character such as the mage levels, they'll have a chance of learning that spell, and if they don't learn it at the minimum level, so if you don't learn increase at level 4, they'll have another chance of learning at level 5, and you know, continuously until they do learn it. There's a couple spells that have a partial chance at one level and guaranteed at a later or whatever, but the general idea is that the runners will need to keep in mind what spells they have at a given time. And it's important for this Kandar 1 fight because the upper spell increases your defense, and the Ice Bolt spell does very good damage at this level. So they're both quite useful for the Kandar 1 fight, and knowing which ones you have and how to react to that is a good part of doing Kandar 1 quickly and safely.
Yeah, yeah. So at level 4, you have a chance of learning upper, and at level 5,
Or
you have
upper,
a
yeah.
chance of Ice Bolt. And so what may happen is that if you're paying attention, you're a smart racer or player, you will know how much EXP it'll take for you to get to the next level, so it very well may be in your benefit if you haven't learned either at level 4, if you're about to get to level 5 and you know that you want to have a shot of learning Ice Bolt, which will make the fight faster, you may want to force an encounter. Let's see what Pop does. Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what he's doing. So he's taking an encounter here, and hopefully he can level up.
What does increase and upper do?
So yeah, so there's a whole bunch of spells in this game. Upper and increase your defense. So they're wildly valuable, especially earlier on, to be able to. Well, actually, throughout the whole run, they're super valuable. Yeah, and Ice Bolt just does good damage for quite a while.
Yeah, so I misspoke a little bit. Level 4 is upper with a chance to learn, which is a single target defense increase. The increase spell will be a little bit later, and that does a full party defense increase. So
Yeah.
just to clarify that a little bit.
Can you tell us what's happening in the story right now?
Yeah, sure. So there's actually not a ton of story backbone to this game. Effectively, you start off as the hero, and you go out on a journey to try to find both the evil wizard, or I don't even know what they refer to him as, our dinosaur friend Baramos. I guess Archfiend is technically what they call him, but effectively he's just like this demon overlord. And so you're going to go both find him and then also find your father, who went to go fight Baramos and apparently just went missing, or nobody
Fell
knows
into a
what happened to him.
volcano, I think.
Fell into a volcano, yes. Happens to the best of us. So, yeah, so you're kind of set out and you're on your journey to do that. You don't really have too much direction. You just are told to get some friends and go start exploring. The way it works is that Kandar 1 and 2 is kind of like the segue into getting the ship, and that Kandar is just kind of this like this goon who's he's like a rogue and causes problems for people. But effectively, when you defeat Kandar 2, you get the black pepper, and that gives the Portoga king, makes him happy, and he gives you a ship, and then you start exploring, and then realize that you need to do greater things and go collect these orbs that we'll talk about in a bit.
I found it funny that when I played this casually, you beat Kandar and he asks you to forgive him, and when you do, he just goes and causes problems somewhere else.
Oh yeah, you can't say no.
So one thing that you may have just seen on pop screen is that Kandar had sort of a different attack animation. So certain enemies in this game have the ability to critically hit, and when they do that, there is a different attack animation that triggers. So for Kandar 1, there's a 1 in 8 chance that he will trigger the attack animation, and then there's another 1 in 8 chance that that will actually critical hit. So for Kandar 1, it's the one where he lifts the axe way over his head and it looks like he's swinging a heavy blow. So every time you see that, you're a little bit nervous, because the way critical hits work in this game is that they ignore your party's defense. So even though he had buffed his characters with the upper spell, which he had learned, if Kandar had critically hit, it would have most likely just killed somebody outright.
Yeah, absolutely. So all the enemies in this game have 8 different action slots. Some of them have an AI that overrides that, and they'll do kind of different things. We'll see that with Baramos. But for the most part, every enemy has 1 in 8 chance of rolling each action, of which different slots can mean the same thing. So for Kandar, he's got 5 slots that mean attack, just regular attack. 2 of them are the attack, the overhead swing that we were just talking about, in which that attack has a 1 in 8 chance. So it's basically 1 in 64 times 2 of getting criticaled, which is awful. And then there's 1 in 8 chance of defend. So I think when SUMD gets to Kandar, we'll kind of more properly talk about the fight. It's not too dangerous, but early on, when there's those 4 enemies, you really want to protect your mage. So it's very fortunate, not super lucky, but it's fortunate that Pop didn't have his mage die. We'll talk about why when we get through Kandar 2. Having the mage alive is even more important.
And like Tonic was saying about characters that have different AI, Kandar 1 is also a pretty decent example of that. So normally, party order is very important in Dragon Quest games. It's not an obvious mechanic, but characters that are near the front of the party have a higher chance of getting targeted by physical attacks specifically than characters at the back. And it's about 40%, 30, 20, 10, based on their slot. But Kandar 1 ignores that. It's pretty much a flat 25% for both him and the henchman to attack your different characters. So your mage, even though she's in the back of the party, is quite vulnerable during that fight.
Yeah. Okay, so Popson's on his way to Baharata, and we'll be eventually going through Kandar Cave to get to Kandar 2. And yeah, it looks like somebody's kind of heading up the tower. I haven't seen what spells he's potentially learned, but so, okay, cool. So yeah, we'll kind of properly cover Kandar 1 when he gets up there. But yeah, we take a quick donation.
Keeps doing that. Certainly. $100 from Gamora saying, woohoo, Dragon Quest III is a perfect time for the runners to unleash the super secret all goof off party strat. I mean, good luck to the runners.
No.
I appreciate everything that the community has been doing to make Limit Break another success. Every day I work with folks who are battling with mental illness, and it's organizations like NAMI and events like this that help tear down the wall that create many barriers to treatment. All the conversations, donation comments, and chats we've had during the event helps others struggling see that they are not alone. There are no words that are adequate to describe how powerful this is. Thank you. And thank you for your donation, Grimora.
All right, great. So, yeah, looks like Popson's kind of going through. So you'll see, so he's going to use a Nifuramu spell here on the red animal zombies. And Nifuramu's Expel. And effectively, this kind of is a good segue into the conversation of managing your experience from here on. The goal is always to go fast, right? But you also want to gain experience when you can. So there's this like very subtle balance between fighting battles to actually defeat the enemies and then also clearing out ones that are just too time intensive to bother with. So there's kind of this cool balance of using the Expel spell to clear out enemies. And yeah, every enemy has a different resistance table, so there's either a value 0, 1, 2, or 3, and 0 meaning that you're fully immune, or 3 means that you're fully, vulnerable. So it turns out that the red animal zombies and many enemies just have different amounts of Expel resistance, so we'll be using Expel quite a bit throughout the run to kind of clear out those lesser enemies. Cool. Okay, so let's properly go through Kandar 1 now that SUMD is doing it. So Kandar 1 has 350 HP, and the 3 henchmen have, I think, 60. Yep. So, yeah, like Hactical was saying before, the first turn is probably the most dangerous because anybody can get targeted. So that overhead swing is what we were talking about before. If you see that, it's a 1 in 8 chance from there to get criticaled. You can't recover from a critical in Kandar 1. There's a chance in Kandar 2 you could, but this is looking pretty good already. What's happening is that SUMD had used the upper spell, and he's still doing it. Sukara is what it's called in Japanese, but upper. Just boosting up his defense, and then it's going to plow through. So, yeah, I mean, this is like a great place to be. His characters are alive. His levels are looking pretty good. And he's just going to make sure that his thief is taking care of damage as it comes in by healing people. And, yeah, pretty much from here, it's just kind of attack, attack. Yeah, this is looking good, though, for sure. Okay, so over on Pop Son's feed, what's happening is that he made it to Baharata. He triggered a story trigger in order to make it through to Kandar 2. And he's going to go to the cave, and he's going to get the black pepper back. Or I guess really stop the source of the problems for the black pepper to flow.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that the shop was shut down because the guy who runs it, his girlfriend or whatever, was captured by Kandar, and the shop owner runs off to try to save her and ends up captured himself. So by defeating Kandar 2, he will reward us with some black pepper, which the king is desperately craving. King of Portoga.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about black pepper. It's not that special to me, but... Okay, cool. So yeah, going into Kandar 2 cave, what's happening is that Pop has just managed his levels pretty well, and he's going to be doing some shifting around of his party order. Looks like he's picking up a safety set of seeds here. There's more seeds downstairs. This is a stamina seed, so you'll want to use stamina seeds throughout the run to influence your HP growth, but later the HP seeds, which is like the other side of HP growth, you'll use them at the end of the game. So yeah, collecting a bunch of seeds here. He's going to rearrange some of his party. Again, talking about the accessories, we're going to be swapping the meteorite armband and the hero's armband, just to make sure that the thief is definitely going first. So he's going to be doing a bunch of that menu in now. Over on SUMD's stream, he's just making his way to Portoga now. I don't think we talked about this before, but again, part of the story is that the king gives you the letter so that you can talk to Norud, this dwarf, so that he can open up he just like punches open the wall, I guess, and allows you access. So, okay, cool. So looking at Pop's feed, he's fighting the 4 henchmen now. These are different henchmen than before. They have the same sprite, but these have 100 HP, and they're way, way different than before. So they have spells now. They can cast Behoimi, which is heal more and heal each other, and they can cast Rukanon, which is defense, and they decrease your party's defense. You want to talk about the the equip reset?
Sure. So, like I was talking about earlier, in combat you can sort of select certain equipment to equip through your menus, and when you equip an item, even if it's already equipped, if you go into the equip menu and reselect an item in battle, right, it'll recalculate your stats basically. So if they've been modified by either an increased spell or a decreased spell, it will kind of reset that to a blank slate. So if its characters get hit by Rukanon from the henchman, he can keep track of which ones get hit and reset their defense. It can be a little bit complicated, certain fights, if you've cast an increase and they've casted a decrease, whether or not you should do it. But in general, it's just a way of keeping your defense up.
Cutting it close there, somebody. Very nice. Yeah. But we'll see that typically throughout the run. You have to be careful, though, because it both resets both buffs and debuffs. Right. So it's definitely scary.
So here in the story, they're just saving this couple that got kidnapped. The girl got kidnapped by Kandar, and the guy's like, I'm going to go save my girlfriend. And then he gets kidnapped by Kandar. So
yeah, pretty much.
We basically get asked by the grandfather to come save them from Kandar.
Oh, yeah. All right, Kandar 2, 700 HP. Henchmen have 100 each. Kandar 2 is probably less scary than Kandar 1, but certainly can do a lot of damage through a crit. But yeah, it's really the henchmen that are the problem in Kandar Cave. So yeah, these two, they can heal each other, they can mess with your defenses. It gets scary if they both cast defense in the first like 2 turns and you haven't reset your defense, and then Kandar whips you with like a strong attack that you're not expecting. But looks like Popson's making it through. Unfortunately, he just healed himself. Heal more heals for about 80 HP, which basically just pretty much undoes all the damage that you've done up to that point. And yeah. So, but Kandar himself, you know, only single targets, and by this point you almost definitely have the upper spell, so you can kind of buff your characters and yeah, be well prepared. So again, the thief's role is to heal everybody. The warrior and the hero are doing damage, and the mage is kind of playing support. Going to the end of this battle, we want to very much make sure that we have 8 MP left over so that we can cast Rirameto or outside, and that just allows us to warp out of the dungeon right afterwards. Otherwise, you would have to walk out. So
Yeah, and the Kandar 2 fight is another one that's a little bit variable on spell learning, and the henchman before it. After beating Kandar 1, your mage gets a bunch of levels, assuming that your mage is still alive, which is very important because you get the chance of learning Gira, or the Fireball spell, which is useful for clearing out those henchmen a little bit more quickly. And there's also a chance, depending on how much XP you get, that you may have the Increase spell, which buffs your entire party's defense. It's not very common, but it can happen at this point.
yeah. And I think this is a little bit of deviation of strategy that typically I've seen SUMD bring the Mafuji wand with him, whereas I don't see Pop using it that often. But effectively, the Mafuji wand is I think it's translated as the Mist Staff, and allows you to cast infinite amounts of stop spell, which will mute, if you're familiar with Final Fantasy, or basically the enemies will not be able to cast spells. So the henchmen are susceptible to that. It's not the greatest chance, but depending on the scenario you're in, it may be worthwhile to have that. And so Hactical was talking about this a little bit before. You always want to make sure that your characters have the right items in their inventory so that you can use them. It's kind of interesting because there are some items that some characters can use no matter what their class is, and others that they can't. So for instance, anybody can use this Mafuji wand regardless of your character or your class, but later on there are some weapons that you can use as an item in battle, but you can't use those if you're not of the right class to equip them. So for instance, there's a sword that you can use later. It's called the Thunder Sword, and it casts the spell Eora or Boom, and only characters that are able to equip swords, or that sword specifically, can use it. So anyways, the point is that there's different amounts of items that you can use in battle, and they can be very, very valuable. We'll see that about probably about an hour from now. We're going to get some incredibly broken sleep staves, and they're infinite use and so good and valuable, and kind of make the speed run. But yeah, we'll cover that later. What's happening for Pop now is that he finished Kandar 2, and he's got the ship. So once you have the ship in this game, it's kind of do whatever you want. You've got a lot of options. You're not really, like, if you're playing casually the first time, you're not really sure what you're supposed to do, and you're just going to go out and learn. But we have obviously a very keyed-in strategy as to what we're going to do. But yeah.
One thing you'll notice about in a little while, once SUMDeaner catches up, is that as Tonic was saying, you can sort of do things in different orders, and these two runners actually take kind of a different route after they get the ship. They both first will go to the town of Su, but then SUMDeaner will be going to Eliahan and the pirates' hideout and doing some sequence of events there, whereas Popsan will be going to Edinburgh first and getting the Thirsty Pitcher, because there's a few things that can sort of be done in sort of varying orders without really being any different in time. It's mostly a difference of what you've learned and what you're comfortable with menus, and setting things up in a good way.
Yeah. So we see, Popson's on his way to Su. He's able to run away. Second try, which is good. Some of these ocean encounters not dangerous, but very, very, very slow. So,
SUMDeaner just got pretty lucky. He landed 3 of the stop spells on these henchmen.
oh, that's great.
Usually it's about a third chance to hit it or so. So usually you're happy if you get 1, and he got 3 of them, so that stops them from casting Heal More or Defense. And they can still, like you just saw right there, they can still take the turn to try to cast Heal More, and it fails. So it's a nothing turn.
Yeah. So Pop is in Sue now. He's picking up the Thunder Staff. The reason that you have to come to Sue right now is that you're going to be picking up this 300 gold item. Is called the Invisibility Herb, in which you need that in order to access Edinburgh Castle. But yeah, just as Hector was saying, basically there's some cleanup to be done, and you have to pick up a few items. I think this is probably a good time to talk about it. We'll point out something if something happens in the Kandar 2 fight that SUMD happens or is going through. If something happens, we'll point it out. But for the most part, we should probably talk about what's happening in terms of like the route and where we're going. So basically, we're gearing up. Now that we have the ship, we're basically gearing up to go do the grind. So we need to get a lot of levels and change our classes and characters and kind of get them to the next iteration to tackle the next set of bosses. So we need to do a lot of cleanup, and what that means is that we need to get the orbs, and we'll talk about orbs a little bit later, that are kind of along the way. We need to pick up as much money as possible, and we need to pick up like the story items that allow us to progress to get the orbs that we need. So Edinburgh specifically has 2 items that Pop just picked up that are worth about 17,000 gold together. And we also come here for the, I think it's translated as the
Drought Vase for Thirsty
Drought
Pitcher.
Valves, yes. Yep. So one of those 2. That's going to allow them to, oh no, it's fine. It's not a problem. But yeah. So you need to get the Drought Vase in order to get the ultimate key, basically. So this is a simple puzzle. I say simple, but yeah, basically you just need to put the boulders in the right order, or not the right order. They just need to all make it there, and then a back area opens up.
Yeah, if you press 1 too many times, you push it somewhere you don't want it to be, or it falls in the water and you have to just reset it.
Yeah. Looks like somebody's having a pretty solid fight here. Again, like anything can happen, somebody gets crit, but for the most part, once the henchmen are down, there's nothing too major to worry about. So yeah, so with some of this cleanup, what we're specifically doing right now for Pop is that he is going to go pick up the red orb. So maybe we should talk about the orbs quickly. So the game kind of expects you to go and explore and figure out what to do. Some people have varying amounts of, I don't know what the right word is, appreciation for the fact that the game doesn't really tell you what to do and you have to kind of figure it out. Some people like it, some people don't, but I think it's really cool, and it kind of expects you to just like explore a lot of areas, and you can go to areas with very, very dangerous encounters now, and you'll pretty quickly learn that you can't survive unless you have specific strategies. So the orbs are kind of the goal for this next segment of the game, and effectively the game wants you to pick up 6 different orbs in order to effectively revive Lamia, who is kind of like this bird goddess, and that'll allow you to traverse the upper parts of the Necrogon, which is where Archfiend Baramos is hanging out. So what that means is that we need to collect those orbs, but we also need to actually, level up so that we can tackle the bosses, for which some of them are guarding the 2 of the orbs, specifically the purple and the silver, that we'll see later. But a fair amount of them are also just kind of like floating around, and we have to pick them up. I think the game expects you, well, the game doesn't expect you to just know to come to the pirates' hideout to inspect a tile, but
yeah, when you first go to the pirates' hideout, the pirates aren't actually there, so you don't actually know that there's a secret place over there.
That's right. So yeah, now Pop is going to set some warp locations, and this is kind of a typical thing in a lot of Dragon Quest games for speedruns or RTAs, that you'll visit areas along the way so that you can warp to them later if you need to go there eventually. And it's a little hard to talk about this concisely, but basically when you warp around through areas, you can actually save a lot of time, and you don't have to worry about going from specific area to area, and you can just kind of warp back and forth and not actually lose time. And actually, it will save time. So you might think like, oh, maybe I'll just, go do the sailing part to this area later when I actually need to go there, but it's actually faster to go there first and set the warp location. So, okay, so now that we're in Sioux, so we were here before, but now that we have a lot more money, you want to talk about what we're buying, specifically the powders?
Sure. So there's a couple key things that we get here. We sell some of the equipment that we've been picking up, like in Edinburgh, for a bunch of money, and then there's a few things that we're buying. So first is 2 poison needles. These are 10 gold weapons. They are guaranteed to hit for 1 damage, and they have, I believe it's a 1 in 16% or 1 in 16 chance of instantly killing an enemy. So these will be useful when we're fighting metal slimes because it has a chance of instantly killing and because of the guaranteed 1 damage. And then Pop is coming over to this shop here to buy a bunch of poison moth powders. Now what poison moth powders do is you can throw them at an enemy to try to confuse them. And metal slimes will be somewhat susceptible to this, and other enemies in that area also. We'll explain kind of how the metal slime grind works a little bit more once we're there, but usually you get about 30 to 33 poison moth powders depending on your exact gold threshold here. You load them up on your characters, some extras go in the bag, and they will be absolutely critical for killing metal slimes a little bit later.
Yeah. So with that, we're on our way to Garuna Tower. So you might think, and maybe if you've played this before, there's nothing critical in Garuna Tower that you need to actually progress the game. It's kind of like this side area. However, it happens to have a lot of what you see on screen is metalu. So metal slime is a valuable source of experience, typical in a lot of Dragon Quest games. And it turns out that Garuna Tower has one of the best grind locations in the game. So we're going to be going there and gathering a few, really just one item, but specifically we're going to go there to grind a lot of levels. And the item that is, there are a few items that we're going to pick up, but specifically the most important item is the Zen book, which allows us to change one of our character classes. We'll cover that in a little bit, but for now we're going to be going into the tower, and it's actually quite dangerous earlier on, and that you really need to manage your HP well and your inventory well. And yeah, for the next probably about 20 minutes or so, we're going to be hanging out in this tower and grinding some metal slimes. We're going to leave briefly and change one of our character classes, and then we're going to come back and finish out the grind. So can you talk a little bit about kind of why we're doing this, specifically the mage spells and what
Sure.
I'm trying to learn?
So there's a couple reasons for doing the metal slime grind now. One of which is the class change that Tonic mentioned earlier. So you can't change your character's class until they're at least level 20. So we're trying to get them up to level 20 so we can do this class change. And along the way, we want to learn a few key spells. So the Thief needs to learn the Tiptoe spell, which will reduce your encounter rate. And the Mage needs to learn the Buy Kill spell, which kind of goes back to that spell learning that we talked about earlier. The Mage can learn it starting at level 21, and it's a 50% chance. So you'll see them get pretty close to that, save the game, and then do a little bit of experience manipulation to try to, if they don't get the spell, they'll reset the game and try it again rather than grinding to higher and higher levels. Because if you don't get it at 21, you can keep going to 22. You'll have another 50% chance. But it kind of takes time, and you may not have enough moth powders to continue. So those are sort of the key parts of the grind. One thing they'll want to keep in mind at the end of the first half is that you really don't want your Thief to over level 20. You want to get it pretty close as possible because the Thief will be class changing. And the way class changing will work in this game is that it resets you to level 1, and you end up with half of your character's stats from before they class change. So the second part of the grind, that level 1 Thief is going to be leveling up. And we'll see that a little bit later, but the general idea is that they'll be keeping in mind pretty specific experience thresholds for their characters throughout this grind to make sure they don't go under or over them.
Yeah. So as Popsong gets through a lot of these battles, we're going to be seeing different types of enemies in this area. So specifically, there are sky dragons, there are moths, there are garudas, which are the big birds, and there are
Metal
beaks. Yeah, well, yes, definitely. So there's the bird beaks, and then metal slimes. So metal slimes are fairly common around here, but basically when you see more of them, obviously you have a bigger chance of getting more kills on them. But effectively, the distribution of the different enemies that occur are going to really influence whether or not you're going to score a lot. So let's talk about what's happening on Pop Songs, right? So there's 2 metal slimes, two
Sting
numbness.
moths, or numbness moths.
Yeah, numbness moths, yeah. I was going to go to the janky translation of numbness at Geha, which doesn't mean anything, sorry. Anyways, so with these 2 groups, what the ideal scenario is that you confuse one of them in each so that they start attacking each other. And the whole reason that we have the confusion is that, one, enemies that are confused typically don't run away unless they're the last enemy left, so they'll stick around. Even a metal slime, when it's confused, will never become not confused and will stick around until it's the only one left, which is hugely beneficial. But 2, the other reason is that they'll start attacking each other, and they have a weird formula so their attack formula is not the exact same as when you attack them, so there's a much higher chance of them attacking each other for more than 1 damage, and a Garuda can do up to 7 damage, so it's kind of crazy. So yeah, let's see it again. So watch Pop's on. What's happening is that he's going to confuse one in the left group, and so he was able to confuse the metal slime. It's not guaranteed for metal slime. It's about 70% chance, and now he's going to confuse one on the right. So it's 100% chance on the moth. So now he's going to effectively try to defeat the metal slime, but he's also going to be able to understand that the metal slime is going to stick around, and there you go. So the moth did 2 damage, which none of your characters will ever do more than 1 damage unless it's a critical or it's a poison needle. So
I forgot something.
So SUMDeaner forgot to do the return trip to Suf to buy the moth powders. So he'll just have to go back and do that. So one thing to note about this metal slime grind is that there are many ways to handle a lot of these encounter formations that come up, and it's sort of just playing the odds of moth powders landing on enemies, which characters can outspeed certain enemies. So, your hero may not outspeed a metal slime, but it may outspeed a moth. So maybe you throw the powder on the moth before it attacks, so it hits the metal slime. And there's a lot of room for just sort of personal preference and sort of like a different style to come across. It's always playing the numbers, and you can have different outcomes. None is really guaranteed for success, but everybody does this grind a little bit differently, and it's really cool to watch.
Yeah.
What kind of attacks do the metal slimes have? Because I saw the metal slime use the fire.
Yeah, there's 2. So it's either a physical attack, or in which they have, I think it's 5 out of 8 chance of doing, and then Mara spell, which is just blaze spell, which is just a weak spell. It does about like 8 to 10 damage. So. Yeah,
but does the Mara spell work on the metal slime?
It does not, no. So they cast it, and they can cast it on each other, and then it just fails. So.
Yeah, they're fully immune to magic. So your spells on each other, they don't affect metal slimes. You'll pretty frequently see the Garudas, if you confuse them, try to cast Firebane on the metal slimes, and that will also be pretty ineffective.
When I see the metal slime. So yeah. So like we were saying before, I don't want to say it's ideal, but when there are 2 groups, you can kind of guarantee that you'll get at least one. But when you see a whole bunch of metal slimes, if you get 2 of them confused, those 2 will stick together until one of the other ones has been defeated. But if you are in a group like this, like Pop is, and you only have 1 confused, you have the chance of all of the other ones that are not confused running away, and then that confused one being the only one left, and then they run away, and then it's a sad time because you don't get any experience.
Yeah, so one other thing that you'll notice pretty soon coming up on Pops is that he will start to kill off his warrior pretty soon by actually attacking his own character right now. And the reason for that is that monsters have a total experience value when you kill them, and the experience your party members earn is divided by the number that are left alive at the end of the fight. So the warrior has certain HP thresholds you want, but overall, it's not really critical to get the warrior higher than level 14 or so, and you really want to level up your thief and mage and hero sort of as quickly as possible. So you let the warrior die, and then the metal slimes will give proportionally more experience. And later in the grind, the hero may also have a similar fate.
Yeah. So specifically, the thief and the mage are going to be changing classes. And we want the hero to get to level 18, both for strength to be able to take out some of the next few bosses, but then also to try to learn a stop spell so that we can try to stop spell both Boss Troll and Baramos coming up. But yeah, so I don't want us to underemphasize how difficult it is to keep on top of the different situations that come up during the grind. There's a lot of varying, just different things that occur. And what I'm talking about really is that as you go through battle by battle and you level up and get more experience, your characters are changing, right? So your strategy has to change to be able to reflect the fact that, okay, maybe at level like 16 or 17, my thief can one-shot a group instead of having to rely upon two whip users to be able to take them out. And there's a lot of that occurs. So keeping on top as the player to both like your HP thresholds and how much you can reasonably survive with, wow. Popson is having a really lucky grind so far, which is great. But yeah, just keeping on top of like all the different elements and all the different unfoldings of what's happening is very challenging. And this is, I think, anybody who's tried to speedrun this game can testify to how difficult it is to do this fast.
Yeah, and so one other thing that you'll notice the runners doing is that they're actually also managing which weapon they have equipped at certain points during this. So they bought 2 poison needles in the town of Sioux. One of them gets equipped on the mage, who will just use it for the rest of the grind. But one of them goes to the thief, who also has a whip. And the whip does a significant amount of damage, so it's great to use against other enemies like Moths and Garudas. But against the metal slimes, you usually want to switch to the poison needle, which is guaranteed 1 damage, which you won't do more anyway, and also has that 1 in 16 chance to kill. So knowing what weapon you have equipped and quickly switching between them is also a very key part to doing this grind sort of quickly. And later on, you'll see a similar thing with the hero with the whip versus the sword. And there's another reason for that one also, is that the whips, they hit a group of enemies, but the way the formula works against metal slimes is it only has a chance of damaging the leftmost metal slime. So the sword will target any metal slime, and if one is weakened, your characters will typically focus on the weakened one. So using the sword allows you to sort of gang up better on a metal slime. And lastly, the sword gives you an opportunity to critically hit a metal slime, which whips can't do, at least when your party is using them. If you're confused, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But, so managing which weapons the hero and thief have equipped throughout this grind is pretty important.
Yeah. So things to watch out for. So for Pop, that first character that is in a party where you see 17 turn to 18, once we get to level 20, we're going to leave and basically go get the ultimate key and do some other, I guess, inventory scrounging. But yeah, so I think somebody's going to be here for a little bit. We're going to wrap up the first part of the grind for Pop. I think this is a good time to take a few donations.
Absolutely. We've got plenty of them waiting for you guys for this grind here. We got $20 from Royal Blue Wizard, who says, best of luck to SUMDeaner and twitchpop. Dragon Quest III has always been a huge favorite of mine, and I'm excited for this rates. Shoutouts to Tonic and Keishura. Please put this towards the Wondershot incentive. Got $5 from Nacho Yakupu, who says, hey, so excited to see this DQ and Bic block. DQ3 is a fantastic game, and this race will have 2 incredible runners. Best of luck to both. May Baikill be learned quickly, and Hagure-chan bless you in the dark world. DQ RTA is best RTA. Congrats on another very much successful RPG limit break. Much love from Chile, Nacho Yakupu.
Thank you, Nacho.
$12 from Split Punch that says, shoutouts to Popson's fly as heck outfit.
Agreed.
So $15 from E-Minster says, yo, it's a great treat to see Dragon Quest III being run by these 2 amazing runners with excellent commentary by Tonic. Also, welcome to America, Popson. Go, go, Nippon.
Thank you, mister.
I got $100 from Diener Rents. It says, hey, where are all the evil orcs? Oops, wrong game. Good luck. $10 from Bernard that says, thank you for supporting this important cause. I suffered for years with undiagnosed mental illness because of stigma and lack of knowledge, and I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. Got $50 from Big Fong Balls. It says, best of luck to my favorite tough guys. Two of my favorite tough guys. I hope both Pop and Big Diener have a great run and a good time.
Thank you, Vic.
$75 from Lauronis. It says, thank you, everybody. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everything you are all doing. Knock, knock. Who's there? Fire. Fire who?
Fire who?
If I were you, I'd keep away from fire-breathing dragons. Donation goes to my dragon buddy Aurelius in the back.
Alright, so as Pop gets into the later parts of this grind, you'll see that his characters are very much beefing up. You can effectively make it without healing your characters as much, though you definitely don't want to have characters that you don't want dead. So it's certainly still somewhat scary. So like even right now, he really has to manage these Garudas, because Garudas get 2 casts of Fire Beam before they run out of MP, and yeah, it can do a lot of damage quickly. So luckily he had confused that leftmost Garuda and trying to score some extra kills. It looks like Pop's grind is going actually pretty well. He's seeing a lot of metal slimes. I think somebody's doing all right, but getting there. So yeah, I think let's see how this battle goes. I think we're almost there. Yeah, 7 damage. There it is. The max damage Garuda can do. It's kind of cool. And you might ask, like, why are they grinding in certain different areas? So all of the areas that they're visiting, those first, it's really the last 3 floors that they've been in, they all have the same encounter distributions, but that's too bad. It's not a good sound to hear. Yeah, so what happens is that every time they enter an area, they want to at least force 1 encounter, so they maximize the amount of encounters that they take. This has to go with the threshold that we were talking about before. So when you start walking around an area, it's in your best interest to basically take advantage of an encounter, because you know that from when you enter an area, the value is reset. So the alternative would be just kind of like walk through the area and not get into an encounter each step of the way, which in layman's terms wastes time. So yeah, what happens is that you need to make it to the floor that you see some D on to be able to access the free silver beret, which is just like a helmet equipped for some of your female characters. And then you also need to go back down, because eventually you're gonna fall off the tightrope to get the Zen book later, which we're gonna use in a little bit. So if you notice here on Pop's feed, so the 4 HP character that he's got now, he's basically getting ready to kill that off, or kill off that character. And it's not like an immediate rush, because he does want to eventually get to level 18 or so. But if the character were to die, it'd be okay too. So yeah, he opted to heal because he does want to have 1 more level. But he's trying to play optimally so that when the character gets to level 18, that they will have low HP so that they can be defeated, and then the others will get more experience soon. So yeah, what's happening here is that he's trying not to get too much experience, which he was just basically waiting for the metal slime to leave. This is what Hacktival was saying before, that you don't want to have too much experience on your thief, because it's basically unnecessary. It would be helpful for your mage to have more experience, but for your thief specifically, it's more about the ratio of the experience of the new sage that you're going to create to the mage that you already have. Okay, so now that Popson is done with the primary part of the grind, there's still quite a bit left to do to get the mage up to level 21. However, we're coming here to change our character of the thief, who is now level 20, to turn into a sage. And I think when we're done with the grind, we'll talk about the character classes and why we've chosen what we've chosen and what we've ended up with. But for now, we created a sage, and what's super important is that the sage now has the ability called tiptoe or shinobi feat, and Hactical mentioned this earlier, but tiptoe is just incredibly valuable. It reduces the encounter rate by about 60%, so it's like huge. You'll get into so few encounters relatively when you have tiptoe. So obviously for a speedrun, it's just like enormously beneficial.
And it sort of combines with what Tonic has said a few times throughout this about thresholds and encounter resets, is that, you know, if you double your distance between getting encounters, you can often hit a staircase or a transition to reset that threshold again. And, you know, you may think that you'll get half as many encounters, but realistically it's going to be way fewer than that because of that reset.
Yeah. In a little bit, we'll get something called the Darkness Lamp. That's just another tool to be able to access that. So it looks like Pop is... So we're in the town of Moore, and we're on our way to get the ultimate key. So he's picking up a few extra Moth powders with some spare chains that he's got. He's going to pick up a Life Force Nuts right here, and he's, off to the ultimate key. Meanwhile, SUMD is, in about the middle stretch of the grind, still chugging away. I don't think he's had nearly as good luck for medals as Pop, especially they've been running away a lot.
Here, middle.
Oh yeah.
So one other thing that I guess we haven't really talked about at all, it's not necessarily important at this part of the run, but it's a good opportunity, is that because this is run with the JRTA and Japanese rules, the use of turbo controllers is allowed. And one thing that you'll see them doing is setting up certain menus in a way that they can utilize that turbo function as much as possible. It really helps do menus very quickly, but it also adds an extra layer of importance to your inventory management. I bring it up now because Pop is doing some inventory management and some item rearranging, but he's distributing these Moth powders, and once memory cursor is set up, you just hold X through it, and taking advantage of that at the right times is very beneficial to your total time.
Yeah. I think it's something that might be jarring to some people in the West, as most people in most speedruns don't play with turbo controller, but it's a very common thing in Japanese RTA of all RPGs to allow for turbo controllers. And really, the way I think about it is that it's just a common rule set that people agree to. And I think it specifically for DQ3, it sets the threshold, or I guess it's more like a standard to be able to execute fast, so everyone's similarly on the same playing field, just like any other proper speedrun in which people agree to a rule set. But it kind of like sets the standard for the player to execute basically at max speed. So you can certainly do a run without turbo controller, but you will definitely lose time in the frames here and there. And it's kind of like a cool thing to learn, and obviously it saves a lot of manual stress on your hands through some of the more mundane matching segments. But
funny enough, I think Darko, who has the best Western time, I believe, at the moment, for the long time played without a turbo controller. He was in the 240s with no turbo controller, but he's an extremely good masher, and he just didn't have a turbo controller, so that's how he played. So it's not a requirement to set a competitive time, but a lot of the routing and menus are sort of set up around it.
Yeah. All right, so we are back in Gruina Tower on Pop stream on his feed, and what you need to know is that we're going to be trying to get to level 21 with the Mage, which is the last character in the party, who, by the way, has a lot of HP, which is cool. So when we get to level 21, we're trying to learn a skill called By-Kill, right? So By-Kill or By-Kuruto or Twin Hits, or it's a spell that allows you to double your in-battle attack. So it's immensely beneficial. So the problem with this, and Hactical was talking about this before, is that you have a 50% chance of learning this in perpetuity until you learn it. There's no ceiling on this, so effectively you're just going to roll every time you level up until you get the spell. So for a speedrun, effectively, like, you have to get it between level 21 and 22 if you're trying to really go fast. I think for these guys, what they're going to do for a race setting is they're going to get to close to level 21. So they'll be at level 20 with a lot of experience, just about to level up, and then they'll save the game and then force 1 or 2 battles and try to basically level up to 21, see if they get the 50-50 shot. If they do, continue. If they don't, they'll reset. And yeah, it's so valuable. You can't understate how valuable the buy kill spell is. And it's really like the whole reason that we're doing this grind now and setting up our characters for the future, because what's happening is that the mage is going to learn buy kill and then turn into a warrior, and it's going to effectively be a mage warrior. So it'll be a warrior, will be able to use spells. The way it works in this game is that as you change classes, you can still use spells if you learn them in your previous vocation. So you'll have a warrior that's got not a ton of MP, but enough to get through all the battles, specifically the boss battles you need, and will be kind of like playing support early on in a lot of battles by boosting characters with buy kill. So yeah, I mean, the next time you get to this grind, which is what Popson is doing now, is that he killed off his hero, and he's effectively just trying to get to level 14 with his Sage, which will allow the Sage to learn 100% chance of heal more, Behuimi, which is incredibly valuable, just to be able to actually heal your party for 80 HP, and then also the buy kill spell. Other spells that the mage is going to learn along the way is Marami. So Marami is Blazemore, which is a single target fire spell for about 70 to 80 damage, which is actually really good. And then also Snowstorm or Hiyaruko, and that allows us to cast a group-wide ice spell. Both spells are actually really good about clearing enemies, specifically in this section. So let's see here. So he just learned Hiyaruko, which isn't guaranteed, and he's going to use that to clear out some of the enemies, especially the moths. And yeah, so here. So watch. He'll use Hiyaruko on the moths and Nifuramu, or expel, on the Sky Dragon, and that's a very efficient battle. So
it also affects a little bit if you save at level 20 and you're going to grind to 21 outside of the tower, having the Hiyaruko spell gives you a few more options in terms of where you can grind and what encounters you can fight to maybe make that a little bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't see if he learned the Marami spell, but the Marami spell is really good for Blazemore against the Garudas to guarantee a kill on them. They will not survive if you cast it on them. They won't resist it, and they don't. The damage range of Blazemore is higher than their max HP. I guess we didn't talk about this, but super briefly, all the enemies in this game have a set HP that they generally adhere to, but all random enemies, so non-bosses, have a range of about 5% in both directions, and that's typically the case. However, metal slimes are kind of an interesting case in that they'll either have 3 or 4 HP. So, yeah, hopefully when you see metal slimes that they have 3 HP. But if they have 4, you just have to kind of press on. All right, so what's happening is that Pop is close to level 21, and that he's going to fight a few battles, and he's just very knowledgeable about the experience threshold that he's at and how much experience he needs to get to level 21. But he's kind of playing it safe. He's going to fight some battles, save the game, I think, and then fight another battle and try to get to level 21.
Yeah, and the area he's fighting now is the one that I mentioned earlier, where if you have the Hiyaruko spell, you can typically fight here pretty decently because these monsters are pretty vulnerable to ice, whereas if you don't have it, you need to do this little XP manipulation in some lower experience areas, which takes a little bit longer.
Yeah. So yeah, it's almost there. Yeah, it looks like somebody's getting to the later stretches of his grind, his first grind. Again, the second grind does not take nearly as long as the first one, and it's a lot less dangerous.
I think SUMDeaner's running a little bit low on some of his moth powders too, though, because he's had some unfortunate metal slime runs and some moth powder failures that haven't panned out as well as he'd like. So he'll probably be picking up some more in between the grind sections, just like Pop did.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, too, Pop is playing this a little bit safe because he knows he's got a lead, and he can take some slower battles to really guarantee getting close. So let's look at the value here in this last character. 221. So effectively, if he gets more than 221 in the next fight, which he should around this area, he will level up. And then it's 50-50 shot. If you don't get the spell, you reset, try again. Yeah, of course.
Got time for just a quick donation?
Yeah, go for it.
Alrighty. Got $40 from Purple Mario 920. Says DQ represent. Amazing to see a DQ3 race in a Western Marathon. Diener, I just love your stream and I'm so proud to see you represent the community. Pop, I'm excited for the horse racing bonus stream. Gome-chan Bingo. Tonic and Hactical, it is awesome to have you both on the couch. Money has to go to BPMA and FFL because the fam is strong. Also, hey Ghost King.
Thank you, Purple Mario. Okay, yeah, so Pop had to reset because he didn't get the spell, but basically he's just going to kind of keep at this. My personal PB for failed buy kills is 8, which is pretty bad. Yeah.
One thing you may have noticed on SUMDeaner's feed while Pop was doing that is that his mage got very, very close to death, 1 HP in fact, and a death in Garuna Tower for one of the characters that you need experience for is a huge time loss. You have to leave the tower, go revive the character, and then come back because these thresholds that they're going for are absolutely critical for continuing the run. If the hero died early, maybe he could work around it, but not the mage or the thief.
Yeah, I think luckily at this point he's close enough that if they were to die, he could probably just go fight some battles outside Dharma.
Yeah.
But if it was any earlier on, you probably... Actually, yeah, he'd be okay. Yeah, it looks like Pop's having some trouble. He's at 3 resets right now.
So I received a list of splits basically from Pop-san, and he has marked for each one the stability of the section, and I believe that in this section he has marked it as an X, as in it's not stable, and I believe this is probably what he's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, both the spell learning and just the luck of the metal slime grinds. I mean, I've seen Pop get as low as 117 or so coming out of the metal slime grind, but somewhere around 130 is not unheard of. It's pretty common. So there's just a huge variability based on how everything behaves.
Dang, 4. He might beat my PB.
Just like 30 more, maybe I'll catch up.
Yeah, and again, like it's confirmed that it's 50-50 shot. It's like actually 50-50. Yeah, somebody's getting pretty close. Yeah, you're good. I'm just so tense, so ready for this buy kill.
Yeah.
5's a charm. All right, so the grind is over. I think this is a great opportunity to talk about the classes and why we chose what we did. So we have the hero. You can't change the hero's class. You're going to keep the hero throughout the run. The goal of the hero in the early game is to pretty much like heal and not really do too much because his stats growths are not as good as the others. Specifically, his EXP curve is weighted a lot. I guess he'll get less levels for the same amount of EXP that the other characters do. But from here on out, Hero is going to be the primary damage dealer throughout the rest of the run. His strength growths are actually really, really good. So then you have the Warrior. The Warrior is the one that did not change classes. So the Warrior's goal is to do some damage in the next few bosses for sure. But as we get more and more into the end game, is primarily just the soak damage. We have the Thief that turned into a Sage. So the Thief starts off the Thief life, getting a few key abilities, specifically Tiptoe, and also just a lot of agility. We'll talk about this in a second because agility actually means defense in this game as well. But the thief turning into a sage means that you'll have effectively a very fast sage, and the sage will learn all spells in both the cleric and the mage lines. So the sage, is anybody who's played this game, is just pretty well known for being like an incredibly powerful class. So having one sage with all of the different spells and be able to heal your party and support them is very, very valuable. And then finally, we have the Mage Warrior, which is what all of the grinding had just been about, is to set up a warrior for the end game to be able to both do some damage and tank some damage, but also very specifically have the buy kill spell and a few other spells too to support the party. So we'll get to the bosses when we get there, but generally just understand that the hero is going to be doing damage, that the other characters are going to be doing some damage and doing some support, and the sage is specifically going to be running a lot of debuff spells and healing the party. So
Yeah, it can't be overstated how important status effects are to this. You know, Tonic was mentioning buy kill as a buff and various debuffs that the sage can cast, and they will be absolutely critical for the boss fights in particular.
yeah, so you'll see here, and yeah, this is probably a good time to talk about it, but in this game, your base agility is actually your defense, and then whatever defensive equipment you put on top of that rolls up into what your actual defense, like effective stat is. So it's kind of a counterintuitive thing. You might think stamina may mean defense, but stamina and wisdom, all they do is influence your HP and MP growth, and that wisdom also, it's commonly perceived that it has an effect on the spell learnings, but that's not the case in Dragon Quest 3. It's all about just the HP and MP growth for both stamina and wisdom. However, agility both influences your speed in battle and what your base defense is. So it's an incredibly important stat. So that's why having a thief turn into a sage means that you have like a relatively tanky sage because of the agility meaning defense, but also is actually quite fast. And then you combine that with the starry ring or the meteorite armband, which is that accessory we were talking about before, which allows you to double your speed. So yeah, all that being said, the sage turns out to be like an incredibly valuable character.
Yeah, you'll frequently see the sage taking less damage from physical hits than the warrior,
Yeah.
which is very counterintuitive to a lot of people, but it's really critical to how this is routed out and the way that equipment's distributed.
Yeah. You think about the warrior, like, oh, you know, I'm sure they're tanky, but the warrior is incredibly slow, therefore has very low base defense. And the game is, I guess, designed to say, like, okay, but they can equip the best equipment, therefore they can make up for it. But kind of doesn't work that way. So while we were in what's called Gaia's Navel, we got the blue orb, and we also picked up the Terra Armor. The Terra Armor is okay, but it's specifically going to be sold for a lot of money. So yeah, from here on out, we're basically, from Pop's side of the race, we're done grinding. We're not really going to be grinding anymore. We're going to be fighting some battles, especially in the Dark World. But yeah, I mean, the primary like grind part of the game is over, and it's typically considered first half, last half of the game. So when you're done grinding and you get your mage turned into the Mage Warrior, that's effectively the end of the first half, and the second half is a completely different beast. It's typically seen that the first half of the game is kind of just like a randomness romp, and you just hope for the best through all the grinding and the slimes. And then the second half is really, in my opinion, like a lot more fun and rewarding. There's a lot more happening in terms of the players' kind of like flexibility with situations, and also given situations to capitalize upon. We're going to see a whole bunch of bosses. We're going to see a lot of random battles in which you need to actually kind of deal with situations in a way that both benefits you from a speed standpoint and also like a safety standpoint. So speed in that you want to obviously clear the game fast, but safety in that you need to basically level up your characters and manage their stats so that you can actually defeat both Baramos and Zoma through the end game. So yeah, with that being said, Pop, what he's doing now is going to this town called Tidonki, which is for 2 things. So he's picking up the green orb, in which that'll place his orb count at 3, and then he's also getting the darkness lamp. You want to talk about the darkness lamp?
Sure. So the darkness lamp is an item that can be used outside of combat, and the effect is simply that if it's day, it makes it night. You can't use it at night. The effect of that from a practical standpoint is that a few things. Most notably, it's used for some story triggers. There are certain times where you need it to be night in order to progress the story, but also when they're doing overworld movement, using the Lamp of Darkness counts as a screen transition for resetting encounter threat. So it really drastically reduces the amount of overworld encounters that you get. And again, it helps with a couple story triggers before boss troll in the merchant town later on. Another thing that's worth noting that goes with that is the effect of the return spell, Rura, and the Chimera Wing, and that when you use either of those to warp to a town, it resets the time of day to daytime. So there are cases where it may seem counterintuitive that they're using a wing to warp to a town, but it can be used just to set it to day. So here he'll be arriving at Pop will be arriving at Samanosa at night, and he needs to do more walking afterwards. He may go to Romilly to pick up an assassin dagger and some backup items, or he may just continue on. So he's just continuing on. So he literally just winged to the town he just walked into simply to reuse that darkness lamp.
Yeah, and then he uses it right here. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, these encounters they're not so dangerous in that you're expecting to party wipe, but remember that we just changed a mage into a warrior, and that character is level 1. And we're going to fight boss troll with a level 1 character, which isn't as scary as you might think, but the random encounters are actually more scary for the enemies to do group attacks and then take out your mage warrior.
It's actually sort of funny. Outside of Samanosa, there's an encounter with 7 or 8 metal slimes that you can run into, and it's always tempting to want to kill them to get your mage warrior a little bit of experience for boss troll, but it can really just sap a lot of time if you decide to try too hard.
I'd say it's not worth it. Okay, yeah, so this is exactly what Hytwell was saying. So Pop is coming to Romilly to go to the vault to pick up the Assassin's Dagger and the Expel Shield. Expel Shield doesn't sell for much and it's not super valuable, but Assassin's Dagger sells for a few thousand gold, and that'll just be helpful. Again, we're going to need money throughout pretty much the entirety of the game, all the way up until the right before Zoma's Castle in the Dark World. So this is some very valuable pivoting to be able to sell specifically right now. So what's happening in Samanosa is that we need to defeat Boss Troll, but Boss Troll is going to give us a story item that'll allow us to progress and eventually get the silver orb. But while we're here, we're going to pick up some really valuable equipment. So we didn't talk about magic shields earlier when we got them, but we got them in town of Baharata. And magic shields are very, very good shields that reduce magic damage, and most of your characters can equip them. What's happening now is that we're trading those in primarily for dragon shields. So the hero, the warrior, and the mage warrior are all going to get dragon shields, while the sage is going to keep the magic shield. And that both the dragon shield and the magic shield allow you to reduce fire and ice damage pretty drastically, especially the dragon shields. So we're going to be buying 3 of those here. We're going to be buying Zombie Killer, which is a weapon for the we're going to buy it first for the warrior, and then we're going to sell it back later. But yeah, specifically those 2 things are incredibly valuable for the fights coming up. We're going to be taking out Boss Troll, and we need to be basically as stacked as possible. Yeah. All right, so it looks like SUMD is getting to the buy kill grind pretty soon, so very close to level 21.
Yep. So
yeah.
So from a more of like a story standpoint, as Tonic mentioned earlier, the main story of the game isn't super involved, but as you progress through the game, there's sort of every town kind of has its own little story or task that you can complete. Early game it was Kandar. now it's boss troll. So in Samanosa, the king has been acting kind of weird. You come up here and you find the king, and he's just kind of laying in bed at night. And Pop had gone to a cave outside of Samanosa when we were talking about the darkness lamp, and that was to pick up the raw mirror, which reveals that the king was actually an illusion. It was this boss troll that was taking the place of the king. So that's sort of what's going on from a story standpoint here, and that's where the after they kill the boss troll, you'll end up with the transformed staff, which the implication is that's what was allowing him to do this.
Yep. Okay, things are moving fast in this boss troll. So boss troll is 1500 HP. He can cast defense on you, and he can critical you and do regular attacks. So if you see a big swing just like that, that's critical, but luckily hit one of his first two characters. Pop's HP on his characters is really high, so he's like actually pretty safe. But yeah, the general strat here is that you're going to increase your defense with the increased spell for your entire party as high as you can go. You're going to try to stop spell boss troll, and then you're going to do something that's kind of counterintuitive. You're going to cast by kill, which is the double attack spell, on the boss, which sounds like a terrible idea, but the reason that you would do this is that enemy AI will not crit your characters if they're under the effects of by kill. So effectively, boss troll will not critical you once you double his attack. But if you think about it, we were just saying that you beef up your defense by 6 levels using increase to the max. So you'll see that boss troll kind of has these funny damage ranges between, it can be as low as like 3 damage and go up to like 45 or so, but he's really not a threat. So he can attack multiple times, but now that he's stop spelled, it's really only going to be physicals, and it's going to be somewhere between like 2 and 45 damage. You do try to land a sap, which is what Pop was able to do early on, and that was like a really clean, good fight. Nothing too scary. He did get crit, but honestly, it was like no problem. So yeah, and now that so his Mage Warrior was level 1 and just gets a bunch of EXP, which is helpful. It's not super valuable, and if your Mage Warrior goes down, it's like you can make do. It's really for the next boss, Orochi 1 and Orochi 2, that you definitely want to have your Mage Warrior alive so that you can get experience before you go off to Baramos. So
Yeah, and the boss troll is sort of the first check for the heal more ability, really, too. And that's why we really want to get the Sage up to level 14 during that second part of the grind, because recovering from one of those critical hits without heal more is sometimes not very clean. You can use a regular heal spell and some medical herbs on your Mage Warrior if you have them to sort of help recover from that, but ideally you have the heal more spell going into that fight. It just makes it so much cleaner and safer.
Yeah. We don't have to talk about it too much, but there's some alternate routes in this game, one of which is very dangerous, and basically your characters are shifted around a little bit, and effectively your Sage is level 1 going into boss troll, and you don't have heal more, and it's awful. It's awful. Especially Baramos too, you won't have heal more. So, but yeah, I know. All right, so what's happening in Pop is that he defeated boss troll, and he got the change rod, which is kind of this like item that the monster itself, used to turn into the king. So now that we have it, we're going to be going to this elven village, the only one in the game, and we're going to be using the change rod over and over to try to change into either a dwarf or a slime, so that we can actually talk with the elven inhabitants to be able to use their shop. This shop is only available at this point in the game. It is an incredibly valuable place to come to, because we're going to sell off a whole bunch of unnecessary items, the Terra Armor we talked about before, the Steel Whip, and we're going to buy some prayer rings. So we bought 2 prayer rings with the money that we had, which was some extra cash that Pop had picked up when he went to the Romley Vault. And then he picked up 2 sleep staves, which are incredibly valuable. So they're infinite use sleep staves that you can use in battle. And yeah, depending on the enemy, we'll talk about it a lot as they come up. Sleep is an incredibly powerful status effect to use against enemies. It's pretty deadly when it's used against you. So having 2 characters have basically infinite casts of it is gigantic for the strategies for some of the bosses coming up. So.
And for random encounters, there are certain areas of the game, the Necrogon and really the whole Dark World section, where certain random enemies are very vulnerable to sleep, and the runners will be taking advantage of that with those staffs also.
I think it's very easy too for this in like a casual play for you to have found the old man and just give away the staff without knowing that you can go to that shop there.
It's too bad.
In casual play, you can learn the transform spell, which can have a similar effect, but that's a pretty high level spell, and we definitely don't see it in the speedrun.
Yeah. So the story of events here is that you get the change rod, you come to the old man who gives you the sailor's bone, and that allows you to find the ghost ship that gives you the lovely memories that allows you to go to what's coming up to get the Gaia's sword, and then you throw the Gaia's sword into the Necrogon. So for someone who doesn't know what to do, it's incredibly obtuse, but these guys know where to go. So come here, pick up a strength seed, and then we're going to get the lovely memories, and then we're off. Looks like SUMD is on his way to get the blue orb, and just kind of following the footsteps. Everything that happens here is pretty much calculated and happens in the same order until we get through to Baramos. There's some deviations that can occur as you grind, and actually SUMD did this where he got to level 20 as he was going to pick up the ultimate key, which is like a small optimization based on the way it played out, that he had not yet hit the level that he wanted to. So that's just a testament to kind of the pivoting of the strategies as you develop your character's levels in that. The end game is that you're still trying to go fast, and if you can accomplish things while trying to level up, then you should. So okay, so what you just saw Pop do is go into that shrine and leave immediately. That's exactly the encounter reset that we were talking about before. And he's going to use the I was going to say the lamp, and it's dark. The darkness lamp to reset the encounter right here. And you notice that I don't think he got into one fight or none.
I don't think any.
Yeah. So either 1 or 0, but basically like very few. And he actually made a lot of progress along the map to get here.
Yeah.
So
one thing that Pop also would have had the option of doing at that point, it's more of a safe strat that you might see in like a race, is he could have gone from that shrine that he reset at down south a little bit to get a Leaf of the World tree, which would be a revival item. There's a couple story points where characters being alive is required, and it gives you a little bit more safety for those points, but it's actually faster to pick it up later. You can only hold one in your inventory at a time. You can only pick up the leaf if you don't have one in your inventory, I should say. So it's faster to pick it up later, but it is an optional strategy to pick it up there for a little bit of safety.
Yeah.
But Pop didn't do it. So.
Yep. I think just to iterate on that point a little bit more, again, our characters are level 20-ish, and they're a lot more robust than they were, but deaths are still incredibly costly, and a world leaf is incredibly valuable. So if he doesn't get it here, it's okay. It's fine. It's up to him, but he will definitely be picking up one on the way to Baramos.
Yep.
That is a really nice sword that Pop just picked up, and it would be a shame if anything bad happened to it.
True shame.
Don't drop it. And don't throw it either.
I don't know. I think Pop's he's got sweaty hands. It's going down.
I hope he likes Doritos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude.
It might just slip
Here we
out.
go.
Oh
He
no.
lost it already. He had it for 30 seconds.
That was a good sword, too.
It's a Dorito. All right, so what's happening is that we throw the Gaia's sword into the volcano. I don't know how, but just throw it in there, and it causes us the access way to get to the Necrogon. So the area that he's in right now is actually not dangerous at all, but as soon as he gets over one of those sand tiles, it gets dirt tiles. It gets very dangerous quick. So we have sleep staves on 2 of our characters, and they are incredibly valuable in this section. All the enemies here are pretty dangerous. All of them can do a lot of damage to you. the clouds can do a regular like icy wind attack that does between 10 and 20. They can cast Hiyaruruko on you, which does more like 30 to 40. The Demon Knights on the right can do Blazemore, and there's also trolls that show up and they can do a lot of damage and crit you. But as dangerous as these enemies are, you have a lot in your arsenal to deal with them. You have fairly strong just characters in general. They have 2 characters that have sleep ability, and sleep staves, and then technically your hero has the sleep spell as well. The trolls are susceptible to being expelled. They have about a 30% chance that you can just remove them from the field, and they're 70% susceptible to being put to sleep. The clouds can be put to sleep, about 70%. The Demon Knights have like about 30% chance of being put to sleep, so you don't often use that, but you can if you need to. And yeah, so this is exactly sleep staff. So he was able to put all these frost clouds to sleep right away so that they won't counterattack, and it's a good battle for sure.
There's a little bit of variance in this section too based on how you route your money. So when Pop was in the Elven Village, I think he sold the steel whip that was on the hero. You can choose to keep that steel whip and have a little bit more fighting power for groups of enemies outside the Necrogond, but the money's pretty valuable for buying prayer rings. It's an option to buy 2 or 3 prayer rings depending on your gold threshold, and that shop always plays out a little bit differently just based on how much money you have at the time, and that can spill over into this walk a little bit. That steel sword is being replaced in just a few seconds, so it would only really be relevant outside the Necrogond, but it's worth keeping in mind that there's different route options available.
Yeah, so what's happening in this... So we're in the Necrogond cave now on our way to the Silver Orb, which again is the whole reason that you first fought Boss Troll was to set the series of trading events so that you can make it to the Silver Orb. So we're going through the Necrogond cave where we're picking up 2 very important items, one of which is called the Thunder Sword. It allows us to cast Eora whenever we use it, which is Boom, which is just a area all. So every enemy on the map, each fight can take damage from it. And most enemies take damage from Eora. And then also the Sword Edge Armor, which is incredibly valuable. So we're going to put on the Warrior, and we're going to actually pick up another one for the Mage Warrior later. But they will do reflect damage upon taking a physical attack when they wear the Sword Edge Armor. So you might not think it's like a big deal, and for a little while it isn't, but when you get into the Zoma fight specifically, reflect damage can add up to a lot of damage. So yeah, so the cave itself is a little I don't know, I think it's a little less dangerous than outside, but it's still, you very much need to manage what's happening with these battles. Once you get the Thunder Sword, both your hero will be doing a lot more damage, but then also has the ability to use the Boom spell for free. So okay, so while Pop is kind of finishing up, unfortunately takes a death on the Mage Warrior, having some rough encounters, but he'll be fine as long as the Sage stays alive and Tiptoe keeps being cast. Looks like for some D's trying to land, he's in the earlier parts of this boss troll fight, but getting up his defense, hoping not to get crit. And then he's off to casting By-Kill on the boss, and then now he's going to try to land Sap Spell to defense down. I don't know if we really stated the importance of defense down, but that's really good because that's about a 30% chance, and you can get caught in a loop for a while. So yeah, he's going to be doing a ton of damage. Defense down on many enemies in the game is enormous. So a lot of bosses, pretty much every boss, with the exception of I think King Hydra, we are going to reduce their defense.
Everything except Baramos Zombie.
Oh yeah, good point. Because his defense is 0. So, yep. So besides those 2, we're going to be using Sap a lot. Sorry, not King Hydra. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very beneficial. Most enemies are actually pretty susceptible to defense down, but Boss Troll is a 30% chance.
Yeah, so it's sort of a common theme that you'll see in the bosses for this, is that the first few turns are really designed to set up your buffs and debuffs and your status effects before you can really go in on the boss. If you're used to other RPGs, it's pretty common for status effects to not really be effective versus bosses pretty often. But Dragon Quest, that's not really the case. You know, bosses can be susceptible to defense down or the surround spell, which reduces their hit rate, or the sleep spell. Every boss has a different set of resistances, and we really try to take advantage of those in the speedrun, which sort of sets it apart from some other games.
Yeah, we're going to see that when we get to the flurry that is the Baramos fight. Baramos is scary, but he's got a lot of weaknesses too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Pop has 4 orbs. He's got the silver, blue, green, and red orb, and now he needs to pick up the purple orb. So purple orb is behind Yamata no Orochi 2, which is Orochi. And yeah, so what he's going to do is basically go to the cave, and the way this works is that you're going to go through the cave, you're going to defeat Orochi 1, and then you're going to effectively follow Himoko and then go fight Orochi 2. So these are going to happen back to back. He'll have some pause between. But yeah, so let's talk about Orochi 1 before it comes up. So Orochi 1 has 1800 HP, has a few attacks, can do 2 attacks per turn, up to 2 attacks, either 1 or 2 attacks, and then can
either do a physical attack or a strong breath.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I was clearing up my thoughts, but about the breath attack specifically, is that Orochi 2 has different breath attacks than Orochi 1, and Orochi 1 specifically has strong breath, and also no weak breath, so it's more likely to just see strong breath. So Orochi 1 is susceptible to being put to sleep, like we were talking about before, defense down, and surround. So surround is a spell we haven't talked about because we haven't really used it yet, but effectively just reduces the enemy's hit rate, which is incredibly valuable too. So yeah, but Orochi 1 has 1800 HP, is generally seen as the safer of the two, especially because you can put them to sleep. But again, like what we were talking about before, is that the general strat from here is defense down on the enemies. You'll set them up with surround as well. You'll start
Nice one to sleep.
Yeah, that's great. You'll start boosting your characters for defense if you need to, which we don't in this battle unless I missed it. And then specifically, the Mage Warrior is going to be casting Buy Kill all over the place to beef up specifically the hero and the warrior. So that was a good first fight. Really no problems. You can definitely get into some sketchy territory if you are trying to put Orochi 1 to sleep and he's not going to sleep and he's using both turns to use breath attack. The breath attack does about 30 to 40 damage to all characters and can be really scary actually.
Yep, and that'll do a little bit more to the Sage because of the magic shield versus the dragon shield that their characters have.
Yeah. So we're going to heal up a little bit. Pop has to weigh his MP levels. Looks like he's comfortable with his Sage and how much MP she has. And we're off. So Orochi 2 is 2000 HP. Is basically a slightly tankier version of what we saw before, but as you see right here, actually has a weak breath attack in its AI. Orochi 2 cannot be put to sleep, but is generally still susceptible to surround and to sap. And then, yeah, pretty much from here, we're just going to maintain our HP levels. Again, I think I commented on this earlier before briefly, but Pop's HP in his character is actually really high, so he's like generally pretty safe compared to what I would expect a normal playthrough. So, yeah, like his warrior's got like 190 HP, which is really good for this part. Yeah, so again, the Mage Warrior is beefing up both the hero and the warrior, but also in this battle, we just got the Kusanagi sword, which is the Orochi 1's drop. So now that the Mage Warrior has a weapon as well, they can do damage too.
So Pop actually casted Buy Kill on the Mage Warrior also and is contributing physical attacks, and that'll happen on a few fights throughout the run when it's opportune.
very nice. Those 2 fights were actually really good. So, all right. So
13 on the warrior.
Yeah, that's great. So HP gains can be stressful as we get into the end game, but for now, looking pretty good. So we're gonna pick up the purple orb now, and yeah, let's start talking about it. All right, so the last orb that we need to get is the yellow orb. And in order to get the yellow orb, you need to, 1, create a merchant, which we did early on. So when they were doing the character creations, the racers, they when we were in Alihan creating characters, they created an extra character, which is a merchant. And in order for you to get the yellow orb, you need to take the merchant that you created, which theoretically is supposed to be part of your party as you are exploring, and you need to effectively give away your player character to this old man who's trying to build up a town. So the merchant becomes like the stake of the town and kind of helps drive it to become an actual town. So effectively, once you deposit your merchant, you give them away, they're going to leave your party forever, and then you'll do some transitioning to make sure that the city actually develops over time. And then once it gets to fully developed, it's just part of the story that the yellow orb appears after you put them in jail. So that's the end goal. Put them in jail. Put the character that you created in jail. This stretch here is actually kind of scary. So it's not likely you'll get into an encounter because it's mostly over sea, and sea has a much lower encounter rate than regular land tiles. But yeah, remember that we have a level 1 character at the back of our party, and some of these enemies have area all spells. So if you get into an encounter and you don't run away in the first like 2 tries, chances are the merchant's going to die, and then you have to go back and revive them because unfortunately the old man does not will not take a dead merchant to help raise his town. So
one strategy that you'll actually sometimes see on the ground tiles is that if you do get an encounter, that you'll cast the return spell to warp back away out of combat to leave your merchant alive to try again without having to revive him.
Yeah. So yeah, what's happening here is that oh, interesting. I don't think I've ever seen this, but yeah, Pop is picking up a, I think it's called a golden beak, and it's just something that you'll be able to sell. Yeah, and then he changes it to nighttime. The way the story works here is that apparently your merchant friend has become corrupt and tyrannical in this town, so these fine folk are planning revenge and revolting. So you talk to them real quick, and then you find out that your former teammate, however short it was, has been jailed. And if you search behind their throne, which is kind of ridiculous that this is here, but you search behind their throne, you get the yellow orb, which is the last orb that we need. So, okay, so the way this works now is that we're going to go to Lamia Shrine, and we're going to cash in these 6 orbs, and we're going to get access to Lamia. So if you're familiar with RPGs, it's effectively the airship of this game. It allows you to access areas everywhere on the world map. So we're going to deposit our orbs. So we do need to get our character that we deposited back, our warrior. And the reason we come here and do this is that there's a chance with the enemies that you encounter that they actually cast Disperse, and they will force your party members to leave in battle and go all the way back to Alihan. So effectively, you have a chance of that happening. So what you do is you don't bother going back to Alihan until you've gotten through this stretch, because in the event somebody else got dispersed back to Alihan, you'd rather pick up 2 of them rather than waste time and go to Alihan twice. All right. This is a cutscene. This is the only cutscene in the game. This is the one break you get as a player. You get about a minute after you talk to the Shrine Maiden. So I think with that, maybe we'll allow for some donations.
Awesome. All right, so we got $5.02 from Countdown. Says, best of luck to the two runners on this harrowing speed run, but most of all, best of luck to my boy Tonic going it solo on the commentary this time around. Well, we do have Hactical and Kishira here as well, but I mean, Tonic's doing some pretty good work on here.
Yeah, you just can't see
I'm just
us.
talking in two voices now. Thank you, Gavin.
I'm incredibly happy to see DQRTA at RPG Limit Break and Popson representing the East in this most excellent race. Let's go 7 times Metal Slime. Also do the thing, Bick. $10 from Steven. It says, I turn on Twitch to see Clear Tonic commentating a DQ3 run. How can I not donate? What more could I ask for?
Thank you.
We have $5 from Eggman that says, Metaru.
Thank you, Eggman.
And then $10 from Geister Carl, who says, Hi, RPG Limit Break. I wish you a great final few days. Sadly, I'll be traveling the whole weekend, so I'll probably not catch anything live. So I think I have to donate now. Thank you all very much for your donations.
All right, so Lami is revived. Did the 6 orbs, got them all. Got Lamia. Now it's time to go take out Archfiend Baramos. So again, we're done grinding. We're at like high level teens, low 20s. And yeah, I think anybody who's played this game before knows that you can probably like scrap your way through a lot of these earlier fights. Like Orochi and Baramos, Boss Troll are kind of tough, but you could probably scrap by. And most people who go to Baramos get completely dominated by Baramos. Baramos is actually really scary, has some really high level spells that actually most enemies in this game don't have like through the rest of the game, and is just generally a very fearsome boss to try to take down. However, as we were saying before, the boss Baramos has a lot of weaknesses that we can exploit too. So a lot of the strategy goes behind effectively the bare minimum to take out Baramos with his weaknesses in mind. So before we do that, what you'll see Pop is doing now is what we were talking about before, is that he's on his way to get the light orb, which is what we're going to need against Zoma way later, and then also pick up the World Leaf here. So at the intersection of these 4 mountains that you see two of them here, is that he's going to walk to the exact center of them and get the World Leaf. So there's a chance that he'll come back here later in case somebody dies and he needs to revive them, because it's one of the quicker ways to replenish both the World Leaf and revive your party members in the case of like something bad happens. So we may be coming back here, but for the most part, we're gonna go into this castle and then head off to Baramos.
Yeah, you'll probably see when it gets to this point, SUMDeaner likes to do this in a slightly different order, so that way he can also take a save point in Eliahan with all of this setup stuff already completed, just as sort of a safety. He may or may not do that, but you sort of have an option in terms of what order you do some of these events in.
Yeah. Something I always liked about the dialogue is that the Dragon Queen tells you to go take out Zoma and not Baramos. And up until this point in the game, nobody has talked about Zoma whatsoever. It's all about Baramos. Okay, Baramos Castle. So this is definitely a sharp increase in difficulty. So the enemies here are definitely scarier. What's nice about the encounter threshold system we were talking about before is that you won't see many encounters in this area because a lot of the screen transitions are close quarters. So what's happening here is that Pop is resetting the encounters, and then this stretch is the most likely stretch for you to get into an encounter. It looks like he made it through, which is cool. And, he can deal with all the fights that are here, and you actually have a chance of seeing a liquid metal slime or Hagare, but not super important now. Let's see. So it's one of those things that so Pop is like, okay, that's cool, but I need to go fast, so I'll deal with you later. There are better avenues later to try to score a kill on a liquid metal slime, but especially as you get into the Baramos fight, you really want to keep your resources pretty much close to max. You don't want to expend extra MP and trying to deal with liquid metals, so it's no good. Great.
I didn't see, did you buy 2 or 3? 3.
Yeah, that's rough. But yeah, so Pop is now picking up some treasures here. So he's picking up what's called a Misery Helmet, which is a cursed helmet, but only its bad side effect is that it'll reduce your luck stat to 0. But it's a pretty decent helmet, so it's worth the marginal risk. Also picking up what's called the Genie Axe. The Genie Axe is a special weapon that has a 1 in 8 chance of criticaling every time it connects, and also a 1 in 8 chance of just straight up missing, which is much higher than the regular, evade rate by enemies. So it's a little bit risk, a little bit reward. It's really helpful for the end game, being able to just like dish out damage, especially against Zoma.
And it gives you a decent chance if you do run into a liquid metal slime after getting it. You throw your warrior on it, and if it sticks around, you've got a 1 in 8 chance of just bopping it.
That's right. All right, so Bob's doing his inventory rearranging and getting ready for Baramos. I'm giving you fair warning now. When we fight Baramos, I'm just going to try to blitzkrieg and talk about as much as possible. All you need to know is that it's like a very complex fight and there's a lot happening. We're going to be trying to cast Surround, Sap, and Stop Spell on Baramos. We're going to buff up our characters, and yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. This is a very tough battle. All right, so turn 1, what happens is that we're going to have the hero use Iron Eyes, and yeah, basically Baramos is on a set script of 8 different spells. We're going to now try to land Stop Spell, and first we'll use Surround so that we can cause Baramos to not hit us as much. We're going to try to cast Sleep. See how it goes. Marizoma, a lot of damage to the end character. Okay, so no sleep yet. No sleep, no Stop Spell. Looking kind of rough, but so Pop just use Iron Eyes again. Is gonna try to dodge what's the most dangerous part of the, the cycle is that this breath. So strong flame breath does like 80 to 100 damage, which is ridiculously high. So again, the goal is to put Baramos to sleep so that you can start landing some other debuff spells on him and also start buffing up your characters. No sleep yet is kind of rough. Both sleep and Stop Spell have a 30% chance, so he's kind of running into a tough scenario. Once Baramos is asleep, yeah, next priority will be to start buffing up your characters and trying to land Stop Spell as well. Actually, Stop Spell is probably #1 priority. Oh, wow.
Yeah, Baramos has a couple of really dangerous abilities when he's not Stop Spelled, like Bashi Rura, which is Disperse. So Baramos can actually just send a character back out of the combat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, so Sleep is landed. He's now actually put back to sleep, so common strategy is to kind of always have someone using Sleep when he's not asleep, and sometimes when he is asleep, because you know he's about to wake up. And yeah, now we're trying to land this Stop Spell, looking good. So now we cast Increase on our party, cast Sleep again, so he's sleeping one more time. We're gonna soon cast Sap, and then also, yeah, we've already started to buy kill some of our party members. It's looking pretty good. And right before we start attacking, we're gonna go into, yeah, basically our party's actually all buffed up now. So even though it was kind of scary before, we're pretty much set. Baramos is 3,000 HP, recovers between 90 and 110 HP per turn. So you very much need to come prepared to start dealing a lot of damage when the time is right. Otherwise, it's a waste of time to, like, if you're not fully set up, because he'll just start recovering HP. So now we're pretty much at the point where, you know, our party's set up. We've got multiple buy kills. We got Baramos is Stop Spelled. He's under the effects of Surround and Sap, defense down. So we're just cranking through. It's actually looking pretty decent. We've got the Sage is going to be healing, and the other characters are either going to be defending or attacking. And from here, it's pretty much just like survive and go. Again, the Flame Breath is, even when Stop Spelled, Baramos will still have Flame Breath, which is by far the scariest. He still casts Bashi Aurora, but it won't actually do anything because it's actually Stop Spelled. So yeah. He used a wizard ring on his sage to recover some MP to make sure that he's got enough to get through heal mooring everybody, and looking like he knows how much damage because he's playing a little bit riskier, and that's it. Excellent fight. Really scary in the first part. I think that was about like 12 casts of sleep before Baramos went to bed, but yeah, Pop was able to clutch it out because that's the kind of guy he is.
Baramos is also the highest XP value enemy in the game, or I don't know if that's true in the post game also.
It is true, actually.
Worth about 65,000, so it's a great source of levels to prepare the runner for going into the Dark World. It's pretty critical to try to have everybody alive for that Baramos fight, so that way the Dark World is as stable as possible. Your couple characters like your Warrior in particular, you really need as much hit points as possible, so missing out on Baramos experience is a little bit scary. So Pop beat the fight with everybody alive. It's looking good.
Yeah, it's great. Baramos is worth about 1.5 liquid metal slimes, but liquid metal slimes are the most source of EXP in the game. There's no king metals in this. All right, so that's great. Yeah, that was definitely a good fight. It's always scary going to Baramos, and luckily compared to Zoma, if you have to refight Baramos, it's not nearly as bad in time loss, but you still have to walk through the castle, and it definitely takes time. So, all right, so that's it, right? Archfiend, Baramos down.
Archfiend defeated. We go back home.
It's over, dude.
To celebrate.
You're almost there,
Mom
somebody.
doesn't even come out to say thanks
No,
for
she
beating
doesn't.
the Archfiend.
She knew you had it in you all along. You
Yeah.
completed the quest that the king set you on at the beginning of the game.
Here we are.
Go into the castle and say hi to the king.
Oh,
and
look at
he's
these
like,
six
Hey, thanks.
soldiers. Just
Who can
true
also play the
heroes.
trumpet.
Look at them. They're here for the long haul, you know?
We've got these wonderful trumpets that they're going to play for us.
I'll listen to that trumpet.
Oh.
What's this? Oh, what's going on? We killed Baramos.
Rip the trumpeters.
6 trumpeters go down.
Those were good
Turns out-
trumpets, man.
Baramos wasn't the real guy. Your boy Zoma coming in. So yeah. Basically from here we're gonna go straight to the Dark World and try to take out this guy. So again, the Dragon Queen tells you to watch out for Zoma. Everybody else thinks Baramos is the Archfiend. Not the case.
The king's just kind of confused. And is
What?
like,
Sorry, somebody literally walked one tile and got into a fight, which is like an infinitesimal chance of happening.
The king is the king is confused and tells you just not to tell anybody. So
Yeah, that's true.
At this point, he also gets kind of upset, and he won't save your game anymore. You actually have to talk to the Chancellor next to him to save.
you didn't actually save the world, so I'm not going to save your game.
All right, so it turns out when you defeated Archfiend Baramos, opened up a portal to the Dark World, and Dark World is definitely like one of the cooler parts of the game. You come here, you have a pretty powerful party that was able to defeat Zoma, but there's a lot of scary enemies around here. And if you've ever played Dragon Quest 1 or 2, I guess, before, Alefgard is where we're in now. And this is effectively the area in which Dragon Quest 1 takes place. So DQ3 is a sequel to DQ1 and 2.
Prequel.
Prequel. That's what I meant. Yep. Prequel. So happens right before, I think it's like 100 years before. No. DQ1 to 2 is 100 years. I'm actually not sure. I think DQ3 is like way before.
It doesn't specify.
So I see. Yeah. Anyways, this happens way before. So come here. There's a lot of like similarities to what you do in Dragon Quest 1 that you do here, but your main goal is to create the rainbow drop, just like in DQ1, to access Castle Sharlock to get to Zoma. So what we're going to be doing when we're in the Dark World is primarily getting a lot of money and access to the Orichalcum so that we can buy the King's Sword, and then also picking up those pieces to create the rainbow drop. So there's a little bit of route deviation that occurs through some top level runners. I doubt we'll see this here, but effectively you can skip this. You can skip this cave and you can skip the King's Sword altogether, but the King's Sword is an incredibly powerful weapon and allows your hero to both use it as just a weapon in general and doing a lot of damage, but also to cast Arrow Cross or Infirmose spell at any point, which is actually really helpful for some enemies coming up. So what Pop is doing in this dungeon is he's first coming to this area to pick up the prayer ring. There's a free prayer ring here, which is really valuable. And then I believe, he'll warp out and then go back in. And then now he's going to go to the bottom floor to pick up the, I'm not sure what they translate to, but it's a demon armor and the destruction sword, I think. And those two will sell for about 60k, which is a lot of money. And we need a lot of money to be able to both afford the King's Sword, which is mostly, when we sell the Orichalcum, we're going to get a lot of money too. But there's some other key equipment that we need to get when we get to the town of Myra, or Cole, as it's translated, before we go off to Zomas. All right. Why don't we take a donation or two before we get into SUMD fighting Baramos?
Alrighty, so we got a couple here. We got a $10 anonymous donation with no comment. We also have a $5 anonymous donation that says, Pop, you did a great job. You worked hard for this. Thank you for being cool, and thank you for being my friend. Smiley face emoji. Thank you very much for your donations. Get this coming. We still got a whole day left of RPG Limit Break 2018. Plenty of cool runs along the way.
All right, so Pop picking up these two pieces of equipment, then he's leaving, head off to Domdora, and then pick up the Orichalcum. And he's gonna do some ship traveling. So while he's taking care of that, why don't we start to focus on SUMD? Gonna go into Baramos round 2. Again, a lot of debuffs earlier on, a lot of buffing after Baramos starts sleeping for a little bit. But very first turn, watch out for the Iron Eyes, which means that the enemy is going to take 3 turns rather, and then we're doing that to set up a favorable part of the cycle so that we don't get hit by Flame Breath. So, all right, let's go. So we got Maholton. We got up, so he put to sleep, so he's still sleeping, and stop still. Very good start. So now he's going to start to pivot, use some other debuffs. Manusa, Surround, landed, good. He's still asleep. He's still asleep, but he's likely to wake up soon. So now he's going to start using Increase spell. Increase, Rariho. So he's still asleep. Or I guess he's put back to sleep. So now we're going to land a Sap. And he's going to start by killing the rest of our party. Looking good. Sap's down. Doing a lot of damage. All right, setup's basically there. A few more buy kills and Sukurutos increase our defense. And yeah, I think from here, I'm going to just make sure that he stays asleep as much as possible. Again, we've got sleep staves, and we also have some characters that have the sleep spell. But looks like our party is pretty much set up. Looking good. Nice. Sleep again. Doing a lot of damage. A lot of characters are buy killed. He's awake. So basically from here, it's going to be the hero and the warrior. Well, really the hero is always going to be attacking. Warrior may use the sleep staff, but primarily attacking. And then the other two will either be casting sleep or using a sleep spell. So, all right, a little bit scary, but he's going to prioritize healing. And he's at a decent part of the cycle. Try to land a sleep. If not, otherwise he's going to defend with his third character. Because, Baramos has 1 to 2 actions per turn, and he knew that there was a chance of the Flame Breath coming. So, again, he's going to try to land his sleep as much as possible, but he does have to prioritize healing. Again, physical attacks go in priority order from the first of your party to the end. All right, so it's gonna be a little bit rough. All right, good. But the next attack would be a flame, if I'm not mistaken. So he's gonna be a little bit safe here. All right, good. So Sage was able to go first. Should be okay. He dealt a fair amount of damage, but again, Bear almost regens HP, so it's like very critical that you keep up with the damage output. Sleep.
Nice.
Very good. Gonna crank through damage. Should be pretty close. Yeah, you should be good. That was a good time for him to go sleep. Good.
Awesome.
Excellent. Very good. Very good.
I'd like to point out that like one of the things that they didn't mention yet is that the text in the battle auto scrolls. I'm not sure if you can change the text speed, but for people who don't understand Japanese and can't read it, like even for me, it's really hard to figure out what's going on. It's pretty impressive that Western runners can figure it out after a while.
It's sort of a side effect of the message speed that we choose. So you could choose message speed 1 through 8, where lower message speeds like 1 will auto scroll faster. Message speed 8 actually doesn't auto scroll typically, but since a turbo controller is used, it actually scrolls faster than the fastest auto scrolling option. So you can choose to let that message stay on screen a little bit longer if you need to, but with the variability of turn orders and stuff like that, usually you just turbo through it.
So Pop went back to Portogo. So when you access the Dark World, for whatever reason, that NPC will give you the Seduction Sword, which you can use as extra cash in case you run into some cash problems. And yeah, so what's happening here is that Pop is now in coal and is going to sell off a bunch of items, specifically the 2 chests that he found at the bottom of the mountain cave, and then also the Orichalcum. So that 22,500 that he just sold, that is going to allow him to turn the Orichalcum into the King Sword specifically at this shop. So he's got 85,000. It's a lot of money, and he's now going to warp back to Myra, the town that he's in, which will reset the shopkeeper, and then he can buy the King Sword, and then he's off to buy some other stuff we'll talk about in a second. We get to see the 6 trumpeters go down again.
Bye, guys.
Dang. All right, so what Pop is buying here, he's going to be buying a Sage's Staff. So actually, it looks like 2 of them. That's cool.
Yeah. So Pop wants to mention that the hero, as well as the Sage, has the Sage Staff to have the Zoma fight be more stable.
That's cool. So yeah, he's picking up 2 of those. So that's specifically why he picked up the Seduction Sword, because it sells for about a little under 8,000. So yeah. So was that? I think that's what he does for too. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, so that extra item that he picked up in the merchant town, sold that for 2. Sold that for some extra cash too. So he picked up 2 Sage's Staff, which is a free cast of Heal More at any point, which is really valuable. And then also picked up Water Flying Clothes for the Sage, which is just a good piece of armor. And then also Sword Edge Armor for the Mage Warrior, which is what we were talking about before. And then finally went back and bought the King Sword for the hero, which is just an incredibly powerful weapon. So yeah, with that, basically we are going to make our final trek to, I guess it's the penultimate dungeon really, before we get to Zoma's Castle. So Rubus Tower, you want to talk about what we'll see in Rubus Tower?
So Rubus Tower is sort of just a dungeon that you climb up through. You'll fight some random enemies in there. There's some mage chimeras that can confuse you. There's some manticores. There's a variety of things that you can run into. They all kind of have different weaknesses and different ways of handling the formation. So doing that quickly is sort of a theme of the Dark World, including this tower. A couple of items are picked up here. Pop will be picking up a couple of Life Force nuts. from these chests down here, you'll be getting the light armor, which will go to the hero, and in particular, on a couple of the higher floors, there is a chance of running into our good friend Hagore or Liquid Metal Slime. The top floor in particular has an encounter that's possible. That's 6 of them, which is very nice if you happen to run into that. They have a pretty high chance of running away. I think it's like 5/8.
That's correct. Yep.
But
yeah, it's SUMDea's favorite when all 6 of them run away in the first turn.
But that's where the Geniacs that we were talking about earlier with the Warrior comes in handy with the 1 in 8 chance to crit if one does stick around. You got a 1 in 8 chance of just taking one out, and they're worth about 40,000 experience or about 10,000 per character, and it makes the Zoma's Castle a little bit quicker and more stable just having that extra hit points available.
Yeah, it's nothing you farm for, but it's absolutely a nice thing to have.
It's worth noting that more than one is not as much of a time save as the first one because of, the extra text that happens from advancing everything. And,
Yeah. Level up, it actually takes a significant amount of time, so you don't want to do it too much. A lot of it is like, how much do you actually need to beat the boss, right? So it's an interesting encounter that happened early. Dragons are the worst. They take forever with their animations.
Yeah. And they're prone to summoning these birds, which just they cast heal us and then run away. It just takes even more time.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. those bears with their spell casting. Sorry. Just trying to adjust my microphone. Yeah.
So Pop now has Rubus's Charm, and he needs to pick up a couple of more items. The Rain Staff, I think it's called, in the Dark World, and then he'll have everything he needs with the Charm, the Stones of Sunlight, and that Rain Staff to get the Rainbow Drop. So he's just finishing up that, and then he'll be heading towards Zoma's Castle. Meanwhile, SUMDeaner is heading down towards the armor and the sword for some extra money, similar to what Pop was doing earlier. I think he also picked up the prayer ring. Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Yeah, I think we should talk about just like Dark World in general. These encounters are very vast and varied in what you'll see. So there's a lot of different encounter areas here, and I think it's really cool for the player to have so many different things that can happen, and you have a lot in your arsenal to deal with it, but it's really up to the player to like best understand all of the different, I guess, way that the encounters can shake out. And I think what separates the best from everybody else is the players that really like understand what the speed thresholds are. So going through these battles quickly, and whether or not you actually need to fight the battle, and whether or not you can run and reasonably survive, and are your MP thresholds good enough to deal with a lot of these encounters, and whether or not you need the experience at all. A lot of this just needs to be like fleshed out on the fly based on what's happening on your specific speedrun. Maybe your HP on one of your characters is much lower than you'd like, and you need to force another level up, and you have to like just suck it up and get through, fighting a few more fights. How does that look like? How are you gonna like do this quickly? How are you not gonna waste time and also waste resources, and is it actually worth it? All of that. There's just a lot of like fluctuating elements that happen every time that you get to the Dark World. So it's super cool, but it's also tough on the player.
Yeah, and as Tonic was saying, resource management is a huge part of getting through the Dark World, so a lot of these encounters will end up damaging your party members, and you'll have to spend resources to heal them. And the result of that is that you'll have to use the prayer rings that they've been picking up throughout the run in order to restore their MP. but again, they have a 1 in 16 chance of breaking when you use them. So you kind of want to minimize the uses of them just to, make sure you have them available for the end of the game, for the final boss gauntlet. But at the same time, there's also the time factor. Using a heal spell or a prayer ring, it takes time to menu that. Frequently, you'll see them do that in combat because the text goes by faster.
Bye-bye. So Pop walked through the specific part of the map so that he could try to fight more battles in which liquid metal slimes in this area are actually pretty common. So unfortunately, they were not so kind. One-time Archmage. They get worse and worse.
It's the nicest thing they could do, though.
Yeah, so pretty much from this bridge on, all of the encounters get actually really rough, especially in Zoma's Castle. Luckily, you do have quite a bit in your arsenal to deal with them. That's actually a good encounter too. But some of them, can do a lot of damage, especially on the first floor of Zoma's Castle.
Yeah, so a few enemies in particular that we'll be running into are the King Trolls, or Troll Kings, that can cast Bashirura, which is that Disperse spell, which again can just send a party back to Eliahan. They're vulnerable to sleep, but that doesn't mean that it always hits. The Archmages that Pop saw one of, they can cast Ionizune or Explodet, which damages all of your party for quite a bit of damage. And they can also revive allies. And then these Balrogs, which is the rightmost enemy on screen, which have Zaraki or Defeat, which is an instant death spell that hits everybody in your party with, I think it's a 15%, or I don't know what the success is. I thought it was like 15%-ish, but I might be thinking of DQ too. So it's a pretty low chance, but it's an instant death chance on everyone in your party. And if it hits,
pretty messed up.
If it hits, you can either use the leaf or go out and revive. But yeah, final dungeon and random enemies just can kick you out.
Yeah. So now there are 3 sets of 2 Grand Titan battles that you have to get through in order to progress. So these fights are a little scary. So these guys can critical you. They recover HP per turn, but they're quite susceptible to sleep, and they have about 350 HP. So so the standard strat is kind of similar to most bosses. You beef up one character with buy kill and clutch out what you can to finish. So that was a smart usage of Marami, which is cool. Just finished that fight. And I mean, from here, I guess we didn't really say, but we're in Zoma's Castle. This is the final dungeon. And all we need to do now is, 1, beat the game, but 2, it's like we need to very much manage our MP levels through the prayer rings that we've been talking about. We need to maintain just like a good understanding as to what our stats are and whether or not we need to try to force a level up to try to get more HP, and to also distribute seeds at the end right before we fight Zoma. So all of this you have to be thinking about how it shakes out in terms of the fights that you fight, whether or not you can run more, whether or not you need to play safer, or you need to heal at specific thresholds, or do you have the MP that you need to actually just like make it all the way through. So we do have 2, so Pop has 2 restorative staves, which are free casts of heal more, so you can obviously use those to save MP. And then later on, we're going to be getting the Sage's Stone, which is a free cast of basically heal us. So, there's just a lot to manage to get to the final stretches of this game.
Yeah, and I have a message from Pop for everybody watching. Apparently, Zoma is the fight he practiced the hardest, so he wants you to all just kind of cheer him on and enjoy watching his fight.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Zoma's a great fight.
Great music, too.
Mm-hmm. Haga.
Hagure? Hagure?
Oh. They went last too out of the like just baiting you.
And in particular, Zoma's Castle was, we've been talking this whole run about level up gains and hit points and stuff like that. This is where that all comes to an end. You know, you have to keep track of what is your max hit points for this when you distribute your life force nuts, and this is where it becomes super important because there's no opportunity to catch back up after this. Not that there's a whole lot you can necessarily do about it to influence the games themselves, but you really need to keep those thresholds in mind.
Yeah. So there are 4 bosses that are at the end of this game that are all in succession of each other. We should probably start talking about some of them because pretty much there's not too much else that's going to happen. We're basically we're 1 floor away from the last floor. Oh, this is the worst fight. So the problem with archmages that you see here, these purple mages, is that one, they can cast Eon Azun, as you see, which does a ton of damage. But they also will cast Revive on their fallen comrades. So it's like you have to do this weird dance of making sure that you deal enough damage to defeat both of them at the same time so that they don't end up keep on reviving each other.
Pop actually did a really cool strat where it didn't work out, but you often have a couple of Moth powders floating around your inventory for placeholders for ease of menuing in the Dark World. And there's a couple of places where those can actually be useful. If you run into Hagare and Darth Bears outside, you can confuse the bears. But Pop threw one at the Grand Titan that was there. It didn't end up confusing it, but kind of makes that fight nice and safe if...
Oh, wait. Who's this?
All right, here we go.
Who's
The
this?
lore bomb. Apparently, our friend Ortega actually did not fall into the volcano and die. Maybe he fell in the volcano. Nobody knows, but he made it all the way here somehow. And yeah, he's fighting King Hydra.
And it turns out Ortega's really good at dodging
For a little while.
for a little while.
So in the NES version of the game, this cutscene actually is sort of random, the actions that they'll take, and how long this cutscene takes is pretty variable. But in this version, it's fixed. It's not.
Yeah.
You don't wait for minutes for Ortega to keep casting.
Yeah,
anymore.
that's pretty ridiculous. And what's even funnier to me is that, so in the NES version, he has his own sprite, but in the Famicom version, Japanese version, he's just a re-sprite of Kandar. Yeah.
So as it turns out, actually, Ortega doesn't know that Hero is his child, and just kind of says, if you ever end up in Aliahan, please say... Oh! Hagure! Kaishin!
Oh!
Kaishin!
Kaishin no Ichigeki. 182 damage. Get out of here, like metal slime. Alright, cool. Meanwhile, Pop is dealing with a very scary encounter. Looks like he was able to stop spell and defeat the middle Balrog, which is the problem.
Ryokan.
Okay, cool. So, what's happening is that Pop is getting another World Leaf. He's getting another Prayer Ring. And then also the Sage's Stone. So Sage's Stone is a free cast of Heal Us. Like, you would not be able to do the final part of this game without it. It's incredibly valuable. So, again, what's going to happen from here is that the Warrior is going to be soaking damage and pretty much just using the Sage's Stone in every fight nonstop just to heal everybody. Again, with these are rough fights for Pop. So he did not cast Stop Spell. Let's see what happens. Oh, I missed. Okay, good. But he did not cast Defeat either, so he should be okay. Okay. So yeah, again, the general strategy is that the Warrior, who's the second character in the slot, is going to be using Sage's Stone often. The Hero's primary responsibility is just to attack. The Mage Warrior is going to be killing everyone just as before, and the Sage is going to primarily be running support, healing sometimes, but primarily casting Increase or Sap or Surround and all of the debuff spells that you typically see. So as we get into the final stretch, looks like, yeah, our HP levels are okay. We'll still get a few more level ups, but hopefully we see around 300 HP for both the Mage Warrior and the Warrior. So some final shuffling. And yeah, so we got 4 bosses. We'll try to talk about them quickly. King Hydra is coming up first. King Hydra is probably the least scary of the 4. King Hydra gets 2 actions per turn and actually has a really high attack stat, but not much HP. And yeah, this general strat is to kind of just as most other bosses, buy kill your party members, make sure that you have at least 1 increase down, and try to you can try to put King Hydra to sleep just like Orochi 1.
In particular, the first turn of King Hydra can be a little scary. A double physical does have a chance of killing a party member, but once the increase is up, it's usually pretty safe.
Yep. And the breath attack that King Hydra has is the same. It's the same like mid-strength breath attack that Orochi 1 has that does like 30 to 40, so it's not scary at all. The strong breath attack that Baramos Bomas has, we'll see afterwards. Hopefully not too much, but okay. So by kill, yeah. Again, we got the Sage of Stone now, so looks like first turn miss, which is really nice. You just saw that reflect damage to do about 46. So that's the first 2 characters have sword edge armor, so any reflect damage for physicals off of them, or any damage to them, will cause reflect. So yeah, the Sage of Stone with Heal Us recovers about like 80 to 90 HP. So yeah, it's like unless characters start getting double physical, which the last character got double physical, which is incredibly unlikely. But for the most part, with even distribution, or semi-even, I guess it's not fully even, but you know, with multiple characters getting hit, the Sage of Stone is pretty good about being able to mitigate the damage across the board, and then the Sage will kind of clean up and heal people here and there. Yeah, that was a pretty clean fight. We're gonna do some healing, some mild inventory. Oh no, actually, so yeah, his strats are a little bit different. So yeah, his warrior again is just gonna be healing. Really, really important that you get on Baramos Bomas, who is actually a really scary boss. It's really important that you land the sap early on so you can start dealing damage. He's got a lot of defense. So this guy only has 1100 HP, but can go up to 3 actions, can cast Strong Breath just like this, can cast Ionozune, which is Blaze Most. Explode it. And yeah, no Blaze Most, but yeah, and also getting physical. It's just a very, very scary enemy. But yeah, again, not a lot of HP. So hopefully, if you can clutch it out quickly, you can. If you don't land the sap in the first few turns, it's like really a problem. But yeah, looking pretty good so far. Yeah, 1 action, good. That was good.
So there's also a neat strat that Pop has taught some of us about this fight is he'll sometimes buy a spider web way early in the game and use it on his warrior, which actually slows down your agility to make sure that the warrior goes after Bomas. Because if the warrior outspeeds all of those area of effect damages, that can put the fight in a lot more of a scary place.
Yeah. Alright, so Zombie Baramos. So we fought kind of like a reskin of Bomas, or Baramos called Bomas. Now we're fighting Zombie Baramos. So Zombie Baramos can go twice and only uses physicals, has a really, really high attack stat, but has 0 defense and 0 speed. So at this point, once you land increase on your party a few times and you're kind of stocked up on defense, this guy's really not a threat whatsoever. You'll use this to adjust some of your MP levels, and yeah, kind of getting into the zone for Zoma. So we're going to be doing some stat adjusting, but I think we should probably do some talking about Zoma itself. So, all right, Zoma fight's coming up next for Pop. What's going to happen is that Zoma 1 is very scary, has 3,500 HP, so a lot of HP. And the strat for Zoma is actually pretty simple. Basically, your hero is always going to be doing damage. Your warrior is always going to be healing. The Mage Warrior is going to use buy kill on the hero primarily to deal damage, and the Sage is going to be running support, either casting sap on Zoma to decrease his defense or casting increase on your party. There's a lot of difference in thresholds of where your HP is at and what you need to do. So there's a lot of just kind of like situation handling. But the Zoma itself has 4 main actions. So it's either attack, use a strong breath attack, which is technically icy breath, which does a ton of damage, like 90 to 110 to everybody. Can cast Hiato, Mahiato, yes, thank you, which is Blizzard, which is definitely the best thing to see, which is like probably like 40 or 65 damage to everybody, maybe a little more. And then also can use Freezing Waves, which resets both buffs and debuffs on the field. So here we go, Zoma, final boss. Let's do it. So the way this starts is that Zoma needs to be hit with the light orb. So you got a first turn light orb, which means that Zoma does not get a first action, which is cool. All right, so let's just like commentate this. So there's gonna be a lot going on. He's gonna be menuing fast, but let's just try to keep up. So early on, you'll see just like this, freezing waves. So double freezing waves. What happens is that all buffs and debuffs. So if you cast sap on him, put his defense down, and you start buffing up your characters, he casts freezing waves. All of that goes away, so you're back to 0. Zoma does not have restorative HP, so you don't have to worry about kind of keeping up all the time. But certainly as this fight folds out, there's kind of different waves in terms of how safe you play. So early on, depending on your HP thresholds, which actually Pop's HP thresholds look pretty good, you can play scary, or you can play a little bit safer, a little bit riskier. This is looking pretty good so far. Again, that second slot is the Warrior, which is going to be using the Sage's Stone every turn, and is definitely the most important to keep at max or close to max HP, because basically the Warrior is healing everybody else. So from there, the first 2 characters are really most likely to get hit by physicals, and the first 2 have the sword edge armor to reflect damage. Then from there, the last 2 characters are definitely more fragile and have lower HP thresholds, but are less likely to get hit overall. That was a nice Kaishin. Zoma, when not under the effects of sap, really does not take much damage, and especially if your characters don't have buy kill. So it's, again, the defense down, attack up combo that we've been seeing throughout the run. And then the Mage Warrior specifically is just using buy kill on the 3rd character slot, which is the hero. So you'll be seeing damage somewhere around like high 180s to mid 250s, based on whether or not Zoma is under sap or under buy kill. So between those 2, this is looking pretty good. Again, anytime your HP gets somewhere around like under like 140 for a character, you have to start really making sure that it's not going to be a problem for the long term. There's definitely a point at which you lose some progress in terms of the buffs and debuffs when Zoma uses freezing waves, but looks like you'll need that now and then so that you can kind of catch up on some HP rather than taking damage, because it is an action for the boss. It's looking alright. Gotta be a little bit careful with that first character. Again, the Sage is designed to go quickly so that you can cast heal more.
One of the things that's worth noting about the Zoma fight is, earlier we were talking about Baramos and how Baramos has regeneration every turn that you sort of need to outdamage. Zoma doesn't have that. He does in the Dark Zoma form, but not after you use the Orb of Light. So if things get in a precarious situation, you can kind of turtle the fight if you absolutely need to. But so far, Pop has just been able to kind of go in on him.
Yeah. Good. Okay, cool. So double physical on any character is incredibly scary. Even if your Warrior or Mage Warrior survives, it puts them in a really bad spot. So you never want to see it. Anytime you see Mahiato, it's usually a good thing. But Mahiato into breath is pretty rough. So nice Kaishin. Pop is playing somewhat risky, not using Increase that often, using Sap quite a bit, just trying to clutch this fight out. I think he's fairly comfortable with his character stats, and it's looking pretty good. And like you said before, he has another Sage's Staff on the hero just in case. Okay, so Warrior goes down. He's doing pretty well on damage so far. So this is a turn where we're not going to get Sage Stone healing now, of which is pretty scary. So he defended with his first two characters, or two and three of his characters, and revived. He does have one leaf left, but yeah, from here it's definitely kind of scary. Well, he tries to get his HP back up. Again, like 206 HP on the Warrior. You have to heal, and you have to make sure that they're taken care of. Again, now the Warrior's back down to low HP, and everybody else. Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, his hero is doing a lot of damage throughout that fight. That was great. Excellent, excellent. And that's it. It's a scary fight.
And as you can see, SUMDeaner is already in this final boss gauntlet. So
Yeah.
despite some of the earlier, different luck in the metal slime grind and everything like that, these races end up being closer than you might expect.
Yeah. The thing is, if you lose to Zoma, you lose like 15, 20 minutes. It just takes you so long to get back there, and you have to fight all the bosses again. So, yeah, still could have been anybody's game, but Pop clearly showing his technique and style, and just clutched it out. That was a really good fight. He played it well. He played it like risky when he needed to, and was able to like not get flustered by the Warrior death, and just kept going. It was great. So he finished. So timing ends. Technically, timing starts when you reset the console, and timing ends when the end of the credits roll.
So this is what we were talking about earlier, where Bomus can, the Warrior can outspeed Bomus.
No. All right. Let's see what happens. This is rough. Oh, good. So I think what happened was that he mismenued and wasn't able to. So.
The Warrior went before Bomus.
Oh, that's what happened? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. So what happened was, sorry, I misinterpreted. So, yeah. So Hectical talked about this earlier, but basically, turn order is like a major thing, and you hopefully have your Warrior go last at the end of most of those turns because he has the lowest agility and much lower than the bosses. But turn order is just like this weird thing in these games where sometimes you'll be a slow character and go first, and sometimes you'll be a really fast character and not go first. And the Warrior's agility stat is like abysmal, but somehow managed to outspeed everybody. And the problem with that fight is that you expect the Warrior to go after Bomus so that you can recover the HP that you incurred. But what happens if the Warrior goes first and heals, it basically does nothing, and then everybody gets hit, and then you don't get healed. And that's exactly what just happened. So it's really unfortunate. So I think we'll give SUMDeaner another shot and, see how it goes. The thing is, he's got way more experience, so dealing with some of these encounters will be easier, and maybe even get a level or two here and there. But yeah, did you have the spider web?
I tried to use it.
You just couldn't even do it. Yeah. That's too bad. So that's like really unlikely for all of that to happen.
It's worth noting that the kind of initiative turn order is set when you finish menuing your input. So if you modify a character's agility with a buff or debuff, it's not going to take effect until the following turn.
Yeah.
So even if the hero had gone before the Warrior's action for that turn was set.
Yeah. Getting through Zoma's castle won't take too long. It's really just the stretch of the refights all the way at the end, or not refights. So yeah. So you don't have to redo the 3 Titan fights. And yeah, it's pretty much a straight shot. You don't have to watch the cutscene with, well, Ortega does not die again, so only once. But yeah, Pop's on just crushing it. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Marathon monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to have a few donations while Diener is making his way back to the boss gauntlet?
I haven't had any donations come in just yet, but we can go ahead and do a quick shout out. Actually, quick shout outs to some of our sponsors. We have Twitch sponsoring this event. You know, Twitch being where we're holding this marathon right now. Thank you very much to Twitch. We also have the Yeti sponsoring. The Yeti is once again partnering up with us to bring us several amazing looking t-shirts. So if you head on over to the Yeti, that's THEYETEE.com/RPG Limit Break. You can pick up any of the shirts, and $4 of each shirt will be donated to Nami.
Yeah.
Get some of those Hagades. So just remind everyone what all we're doing here. We are RPG Limit Break. We're having this event in Salt Lake City, Utah, and raising money for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which was formed in 1979 as a grassroots advocacy organization for a group of parents whose children suffered with serious mental illnesses. And they've maintained that focus to this day, focusing on their main pillars, which are education and support, and awareness and advocacy for mental health concerns and issues.
So as we get to the next part of Zoma's castle, I guess like entering it throughout here, we have the Sage Stone now, which is kind of different than before. Also, what's up with all these goofies? Goofies are actually a real pain to deal with. They can summon themselves, but if there's enough screen space, they can summon the Grand Titans, which is what we saw before. And obviously, there's a billion of them, so more actions to wade through. But yeah, what I was saying is that now that we have the Sage Stone, we can generally play riskier with our runs from battle if we don't need to fight, because we're not going to be wasting nearly as much MP to heal everybody. So 21 HP is looking pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, his stats are looking pretty good. But again, there's so little you can do to control those fringe, random scenarios in which your warrior goes first.
Yeah, the warrior can theoretically end up anywhere between 260 and 330 hit points or so for the Zoma fight before using your seed. So, there's a pretty wide range of what's possible, but usually you expect the warrior to be somewhere around 300, plus or minus maybe 10.
Yeah.
So I want to say Pop's time was around a 3:06:50, which is actually an incredibly good marathon time for this game. Like, getting sub 3 is an accomplishment for many of these runners who spend a lot of time at it. So even coming anywhere close to that in a marathon setting is actually very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. Balrogs everywhere. Again, these guys can cast defeat on you. Not safe at all. You have to try to stop spell them right away.
Yeah, which hit both, thankfully.
Yeah, and they both try to cast. But again, these guys on the right can cast Disperse, which is nasty. It's insane that they put this in the game. It's oh yeah, we'll just send your characters back to hometown. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, we got Raiden. Yeah.
And in a typical casual playthrough, you'd have a way of at least dealing with the defeat spell that the Balrog can cast, because you're expected to have some sort of revival spell at this point, but in the speedrun, you don't get enough levels to get that with the right classes, so
Yeah, not the case.
your only options for revival are your one World Tree Leaf. Diener actually has 2 right now, because of the second one from the chest on the last floor.
Salamanders. So salamanders have strong breath, which is actually very scary, but SUMD actually just used a move called Bomi Osu, which is slow all, and that'll help on the second turn of this to guarantee the kills. He actually almost had it on turn 1, but it's definitely like a smart thing to do, especially when you have the Sage of Stone, because you can recover your HP on turn 2.
Yeah, salamanders are very scary because of that breath, but they're also worth quite a bit of XP, 1,500 per character per salamander. So, if you need a few more levels or whatever.
Yeah, both the sword enemies and the dragon zombies skull. I think they're just called zombie dragon. I don't know.
Skullgun?
I think that's the white ones that we see outside of Cole. Again, so yeah. So those guys are susceptible to expel, and both the sword guys in them. So it's definitely very valuable to just get them off the screen as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting thing to keep track of when learning this game, is that there's a lot of palette swaps for random encounters, and they don't all have the same strengths and weaknesses.
These guys.
Yeah.
Dragon, zombie.
Yeah. So these guys are expellable, but the ones that you run into outside of the castle, more near Myra, are more vulnerable to sleep.
Yeah.
So keeping track of stuff like that's always a little bit of a challenge.
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, there are palette swaps in Dragon Quest.
More palette swaps than there are dragons sometimes.
Yeah, no kidding. Alright, final stretch coming up. I actually think he's looking pretty good on prayer rings. He had one burn earlier on, but I don't think too much has happened since.
And everyone's really already at kind of the thresholds he needs, so life nuts are going to be...
Yep, even better.
Yeah.
I don't want to jinx it, but the sword guys can critical you too, so it's scary.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's got to do some rearranging because things are all kind of out of whack because he was basically, halfway through the last attempt through the boss rush, and now he has to get it back to where it should be. All right, King Hydra. So yeah, again, King Hydra looking out for really double physical in the first turn is really like the only real bad thing that can happen. Anything else is fine. Spread out physicals, and when I say double physical, I mean the same character getting hit twice. Gonna land sap, increase. You need to get increase off first, probably good. And sleep. The ultimate fight.
So there's the Sage, when the Sage turns 21, has the same buy kill coin flip as what the Wizard did. So SUMDeaner's actually utilizing buy kill on the Sage to help increase his damage output at this point. It's not something you get to do every run or even very often, but it's pretty nice for coming back through here if you have the ability to do that.
Yeah. And also the Sage can learn Disperse, I think at level 23 or 22. Yeah. So you can use that in some scenarios. You can actually use that against the Grand Titans, but usually your Sage is not that high level yet. 21 HP, looking good. Very good. Alright, let's get some revenge. Bomus. Bomus is the worst. Like, Bomus can either be completely fine or a complete train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
Can't confirm. Bomus is literally the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as Tonic said earlier, he only has 1,100 health, so he dies pretty quick when you get to damage him, but He
Takes
can
a while.
also take you out in no time.
Yeah, so there's some enemies in this game that have 1 to 3 actions that they can take. So Bomas can go once or it can go 3 times. So there he went twice. But yeah, when he goes 3 times and he'll use 2 breath attacks and Ionazun is just awful. Alright, good. Well, sort of good. Not seeing breath attack is definitely what you want.
And it's worth noting that on this fight and the Zoma fight, all of your characters sort of take a different amount of damage from spells and breath attacks because of the difference in armor. The Dragon Shield and the Magic Shield, the light armor that the hero has, they all kind of offer different protection that sort of means that different characters have different thresholds of what you're really watching out for.
Yeah, specifically the light armor is incredibly good. It reduces the Ionazun incoming by like 50%, so hero takes like 30 damage from Explode It. Alright. Zombie Baramos, again, this guy's all physical, no speed, no defense. You just need to boost your defense on turn 1. Hope for no double physical on somebody bad. That's great. Alright, cool. Really, once you get through the turn 1, in case something might go wrong turn 1, but from there it's pretty simple. And what I said before is that you can use this fight as an opportunity to recover MP on your characters that have wizard rings in order to try to have them ready for the Zoma fight. Again, like, a lot of this game is subtle details, and that you can just save time here and there by doing things in menus while you're taking care of other stuff. So it might be that, you don't need to heal on a turn, so you can use a wizard ring with your sage to recover MP while your other characters are dealing with the battle. The alternative is to get out of battle and open the menu and use a wizard ring and all that. That just wastes time, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do along the way. So yeah, these are some pretty beefy levels. I know that's from like the speedrunner's perspective. For most people, it's like you'd be like 45 or something and not totally safe. But yeah, like level 27 on the hero, you're looking pretty good. So cool. Yeah. So he's gonna do some final healing, final life nut usage, but
That little walking back and forth you just did, if people weren't sure, is the light armor also restores your hit points as you walk, so it kind of just tops up the hero's health without having to throw an extra spell at him.
and he just took out what's called the heavy metal ring, which boosts agility by 10, which is going to be helpful for the Mage Warrior to try to outspeed the hero, so that the order goes buy kill the hero, hero attack, rather than the other way around. It's just for some optimization of making sure that the 2 times attack spell is there in time.
And he also switched around the Demon Axe or Genie Axe onto the Mage Warrior, because the Mage Warrior does sometimes get opportunity to attack a little bit during the Zoma fight, and the extra chance of the critical hits are pretty nice.
Yeah. Alright, so this is very typical that the first turn Zoma will actually get a scripted Flame Breath and then Blizzard. Yeah, Mahiato. But yeah, like we were saying before, some of these HP is looking pretty good. Got 350 HP on the Warrior, which is really nice. But yeah. So again, like, just watch out. Every time you see freezing waves, it's kind of back to 0. But the idea is that you're going to be decreasing his defense, increasing your hero, which is the 3rd slot, the exclamation point. You're going to be by killing him, and the hero is just going to be attacking. And yeah, the Sage's primary responsibility is to decrease defense, and then also make sure that the 2nd character slot, the Warrior, is at close to max HP. Usually MP isn't too much of a problem in this fight, but you do ideally want to have 1 prayer ring on the Sage in case she starts running out. it's too bad that it's early on, but that's also like not likely to happen at all. So. Even the hero is 235 HP,
I know.
so that's kind of crazy. Dang. Yeah, it's rough, so he's definitely gonna have to defend, heal.
It's some pretty decent damage.
Yeah, definitely. Hero's doing a lot. Yeah, and just like that, like, I wouldn't say safe, but definitely back in the game. Starting HP, yeah, it's 230. Definitely requires a heal. Alright, so that's good at least. It's weird, right? Compared to a lot of the other fights in the game, Zoma's actually not very complicated. He only has 4 actions, but it's just like how dangerous he is. Yeah, that's too bad. Okay, so what happened was that similar to before, the warrior outsped Zoma, which is ridiculous, but this is actually looking pretty good. So unlike before, character's HP is alright. Okay, that's good. So it's pretty unlikely the Sage and to some degree the hero, the last 2 party members, will get hit by physicals, but it can happen. Alright, it's actually looking pretty good now for safety.
There's a lot of subtlety that can go into making this fight a little bit safer when you get in really like sort of threshold situations, like preemptively trying to use a leaf on a character that you think is vulnerable to dying. But as Tonic was saying, in general, the fight is there's not as many moving parts as in some other boss fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can learn a Zoma fight way easier than a Baramos fight, but it's just tough because Zoma is just so scary with the damage that he throws at you that it's like never really safe. This is looking pretty good though. It's probably about halfway. Getting a lot of freezing waves, but
Hero's pretty strong though.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're talking about the hero armor. If you just watch the flame breath damage of what hero takes, it's way, way less. Yeah, you always want to see Mahiato, because it's like guaranteed to be healed by the Sage Stone. Double flame breath is definitely the worst. It's just so hard to deal with. So. And yeah, again, bringing up this concept of reflect damage. You might not think it, but, you know, getting hit by physicals here and there, you can easily stack 300, 400, 500 damage. And that's, you know, a huge percentage. Like, you can get 10 to 20% of Zoma's max HP.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the backup strategies if the hero ends up dying is typically to turtle what you can and let the reflect damage kind of do the work.
Yeah.
Just because it really does add up. You know, that 57 damage was almost as much as a hero hit without by kill or anything like that.
Right. Definitely need to heal the warrior, and then looking pretty good actually. We're doing a lot of damage. Good. Again, that's the Genie Axe. Okay. Yeah, good. It's tough when the Sage takes damage, but you have to defend just like this. That's a smart move.
Yeah, it may seem like healing the Sage with the Sage would be a better option, but
Could get out of bed.
yeah, and they're going to get healed from the Sage's Stone anyway, so...
Yeah. Alright, we're getting close. This is looking good. Yeah, so Mage Warrior, first characters run a little bit low on MP. Try to get some saps in. We're getting close. What one of my favorite parts of this is like you start to feel that the boss is about to go down. You just know it.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to really count damage in this fight, but
Yeah.
the more you do it, the more you just get a feel for what phase of the fight you're really at and how much risk you should take.
Yeah. Oh, 304. All right. That's right. We haven't seen freezing waves in a while, which is kind of nice. There it is. Reflect damage. Boom. Excellent. Nice race. Nice race. Congrats.
Very good job.
Good job,
Both of you
guys.
finishing, yeah. It's shouldn't go understated how tough it is to just do a no reset run of this game. There's a lot of stuff that gets thrown at you. So yeah, I mean somebody had some difficulties in the early part of the game just trying to make it through the pyramid, and Pops on had a pretty good run all the way through. Yeah, from here we'll head back to Radatome Castle, trigger the credits. These guys are gonna sing, and call it a day.
Who's singing?
Definitely these two.
I have the lyrics.
I'm good.
No.
Oh well.
No. Can you give Pop audio? Our audio.
I'll follow along.
I know the lyrics, but it's probably better if I don't sing.
Yeah.
Let these two take the show.
Yeah, they're rehearsed.
Rehearsed. Yeah.
I was there for the rehearsal in the practice room.
Glorious.
Can you put the audio up just a little bit for the game?
You need them? Love the warriors interacting with the cat. Just zags in front of me.
Of course, Mom's not here.
Yeah.
This is the dark world.
That's why you got sent on the quest. She just wants some time to herself. Kick you out.
Yep.
唇を噛みしめたとき魂 燃やしてもう一度戦うと誓うどこかできっと誰かが愛の言葉を待ってる何もいらない強くなりたい光り輝く大地を目指して青空に耳を澄ませば振り向くなもう二度と夢に見た微笑みを胸に
If it's all right, I'd like to give a couple of quick shout-outs. First off, everybody watching, thank you all so much. You mean everything to this event. Everybody watching and donating, that's the reason we're here. All the event organizers, staff, tech, crew, and volunteers, you guys are doing a wonderful job. And to all my friends and family back home, thanks for supporting me. SUMD, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a great time coming on and playing.
Hope-san.
Thank you for watching everyone involved ありがとう
And of course, thank you, Pop, for coming over here to play this excellent game.
Oh, yeah. All right, that's it. Great job, guys. Time.
Bravo.
Awesome run.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Pop and SUMDeaner, for that excellent Dragon Quest III run. It's a very difficult video game, so quite a sight to see, I think. All right, so stay tuned. The next run we have coming up is Saga 1, also known in the West as the Final Fantasy Legend by Big Fong Balls. And after that, actually, we'll see a return of our two runners here, along with Velociraptor 42, in a Dragon Quest I Dragon Loop Super Famicom race. So stay tuned.